Ba-na-na. Oh, fucking. I left the mic open. So now the hold screen's up and people hear me start singing Sweet Caroline. God damn it. Ba ba ba. So stupid. Oh shit! I already swore in the first few seconds, so I've given up on us being able to monetize this episode.
Might as well fucking commit.
Who gives a shit? Like seriously, later today, I don't know if you saw, I started a new series earlier this month, and I meant to be posting a lot more this month. But
do you make content?
Yeah, I do. I started making content again on my solo channel.
Wow.
Welcome everyone. I'm Jimmy Snow. This is the Sunday Show. I'm joined today by Shannon Q, whose name tag would almost certainly read Matt Dillahunty if I write it, because instead of doing preparation, I complained about fucking debate bros on the internet before we got started. Let's have a look. That's Matt Dillahunty.
Happy to be here.
I started a new series.
Way more hair than usual. Exponentially more hair.
I have less hair than a lot of people. It's amazing how often people come in and are still like, oh my God, Jimmy, you cut your hair. Like 3 years ago now. It's been so long. Here's the thing. It just hurts my feelings because I know that means you haven't watched me in 3 years. Like, watch something. Anyway, I started this new series, and I start the series by opening up my phone, and I start a clock for 2 minutes because the series is called Shut the Fuck Up. But I can't actually say the name of the show until the 2 minutes is up if I want YouTube to potentially monetize it. So it's a whole thing. So for episode 1 was Jordan Peterson Shut the Fuck Up over on my personal channel, which is seeming even more relevant than ever, as I think I'm going to be creating a new episode, probably working on that later today if I can fit that in after doing the Book of Mormon reading with Aron, and then I've got all of the stuff to prepare for our fundraiser Saturday, which we're going to talk about in a second too, and then we're going to get to calls. I promise the fundraiser is very important. However, tonight I think I'll be working on an episode called Joe Rogan, RFK Jr., and Elon Musk Shut the Fuck Up, because they are going fucking insane on Twitter right now, trying to appeal to the. This is the fucking thing. The annoying thing about conspiracy theorists, this big group of conspiracy theorists that are now considered mainstream, is they have this idea that scientific facts are established by whether or not a person can beat another person in debate, as though debates measure correctness and not debate proficiency, how good you are at debating, which is actually what you get at debate, which is why, like, do you remember the Ken Ham Bill Nye debate?
I do.
People think Ken Ham won that. No reasonable person. But that's the thing, is like, people went away from that. And if you were on Bill Nye's side, you thought Bill Nye won. If you were on Fact's side, you also thought Bill Nye won. But if you were already on Ken Ham's side, you went away going, oh, I'm going to keep saying, well, did you know there's a book to people? Some stupid fucking line about, well, you weren't there, Bill.
Were you there?
Did you know there's a book? You weren't there. I'm trying to make him the crocodile hunter. No, I shouldn't make that. Steve Irwin is apparently he's just a perfect person. I've noticed that he's not been ruined posthumously, which is nice. Anyway, yeah, people think that Ken Ham somehow won that debate, despite the fact that it was because it's not about who actually won. It's not about correctness. And in that scenario, they were both charismatic people who obviously communicate for a living. So the winner was whatever side you were on, you went away thinking your side won and that it wasn't close, which is fucking insane. And so there's this thing happening on Twitter where there are people trying to bully a COVID, basically the doctor, one of the doctors who is most responsible for the COVID vaccine and also some COVID vaccine communication, but responsible for that technology and being able to get that vaccine out distributed for free to so many people, that person, that scientist, the validity of the COVID vaccine would depend on whether or not he would go on a podcast and debate radical anti-vaxxer and conspiracy nut job RFK Jr. What a fucking stupid world we live in. This country, the United States, is so fucking stupid. Anyway, I replied and have been being piled on since like 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning last night by all of these people that are like, debate is the highest form of blah, blah, blah. And if you're a scientist and you can't defend your science in public debate, then it's not valid, which is, we were talking about it beforehand. It's a different skill set. Debate and science is a different skill set. And the number of people who overlap as good at both are very few. Anyway, how are you doing? We'll talk about talk about you, then talk about the fundraiser that's coming this Saturday. I promise you're going to want to hear about this, everybody. And then we will get to calls. 720-619-2288, web link in the description. Shannon, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Very excited to be here for a good time. Not a long time.
Yeah.
I haven't been on the Sunday show in like a long time, so I'm excited to be back. I hope we get some good calls.
Almost no one has now that Matt and I monopolize the whole thing.
Oh yeah, you guys.
Yeah.
It's your dude club now. I forgot.
Yeah, it is kind of wild because it used to be, I don't know. It used to be just wild. You never knew who you were going to get on the Sunday show week to week. And now it's consistent. It was my least maintained show. Now it's pretty much the only one I show up on regularly anymore. It's wild. It's a wild thing. I'm glad to be back though. I don't know if anybody really noticed because I have been tweeting so much but I've not been well for the last couple weeks. Unfortunately, I'm not better yet. But better I am. I'm not well yet. But at least I'm back and I'm here and we can do stuff. All right. This Saturday, I promise this is the last thing, but this is also the coolest thing. This Saturday, we are doing a fundraiser for recovering from religion. After I'm done talking and as we get on to the next call and I have moments to edit and stuff, I will get a link into the description. Also, if mods want to get a link into the chat, that would be excellent. We are doing a fundraiser for RFR and we have a huge goal. It's $25,000. It's going to take a lot to get there. It's going to take a lot of sharing. It's going to take a lot to get there. Now, that said, we have put together an awesome event and you're going to get to see, it's going to be 6 or 7 hours long, and knowing us, it might even go even longer than that because it is us. But let me just tell you what the final event is, and I think everybody will agree, fuck yeah, I want to be there. The final event of the day that will start at 9 p.m. Central Time will be a super chat, though we're talking about donations. 100% of super chats at this will go to Recovering from Religion, which is an amazing organization. They have a chat line and they have a text and call line for people who need to connect with somebody about the trauma of leaving religion. They have a ton of resources for people to explore, to start getting education. They have a ton of YouTube videos. Weirdly, none of mine on there, and I'm still a little sad about that. But anyway, not even in the Mormon section. Whatever. But they have a ton of awesome online
There's one of
resources.
mine.
I'm sure there is. I don't actually know
whole
whether
section
or not,
on Christian counseling is mostly my videos.
I don't actually know if I wasn't on there or if it just looks like I'm not on there because I did unlist 90% of my catalog.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
It might be my fault.
Yeah, you could have been. Yeah, you might be the problem.
Are coming back usually. And they also connect people who are looking for therapists that are well-vetted therapists who can help you recover from religion as well. They are one of, I think, the most important organizations out there, especially with that 24/7 call-in and chat line. The event itself at 9 o'clock will end with the Unholy Trinity taking super chat Q&A, but donations. And when I say Unholy Trinity, I'm talking about the original, the OGs, the Matt Dillahunty, Seth Andrews, and Aron Ra together, all in one spot, responding specifically to any donation that comes in over $100. But though I think this is the first time the three of them have been billed together in quite a while, and that is how it will end. Throughout the day, you will see a lot of your favorites, including Shannon and Paul. If I'm your favorite, you have some things to work on, but I will be there. As well as Seth Andrews earlier in the day too with Owen Morgan, Dave Warnock with Eve Was Framed, and Dr. Daryl Ray will be all guests during that show. Every hour we'll be rotating in new people to take calls, talk about recovering from religion. If people want to call in and debate, we'll do that too. We're never turning those opportunities down. And that is this Saturday. The link will be in the description if you're watching this after the show, or even just in a few minutes from now, as well as in the live chat. You should go and hit set reminder now so you don't miss it. And you also can already donate now. There's a donate link. There's a donate widget or whatever you would call it right there with the show, ready to go. Big, awesome, great thing. So do that. Help us raise, like I said, we want to raise $25,000. It would be incredible if we could raise 10 before the show even begins. That would be my little sort of interior goal, as we're going to be talking about it a lot this week during the upcoming shows on the line this week. So do go and do that. I dare you. Donate, please.
Double dare you.
Double dare. All right. Shannon, I don't know if you've ever spoken to Arlindo, but we're going to start with Arlindo in the UK. Arlindo, you are on the line.
Oh, hi, Jimmy. Hi, Shannon. You guys all right, yeah?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Cool. Yeah, not too bad. I'm excited about this topic. I don't know if you've heard, but the James Webb Space Telescope made a really tantalizing...
Hang on a second, Arlindo. I'm realizing that you are not coming through. I can hear you. Shannon, I think, can hear you, but I don't think our audience can hear you. Actually, I don't know if our audience can hear you. Say something again.
Maybe they can. Maybe in chat they might be able to tell you.
Yeah, I think I think so. So I think you are coming through, but you're not coming through correctly. So, and I'm gonna have to fix this. There was some, man. God, I just love my job all the time. It's always the best.
It's all right.
No.
No worries.
It's shouldn't take.
They're hearing him, but the volume's low.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Everything's coming through the wrong input there. Yeah, give me just a second, Arlindo. I'm going to fix this. Shannon, why don't you talk about something while I
can talk about something. I want to talk. I want right now. We don't have a lot of calls on the line. I'm hoping, and both of them are atheists. I really want to talk to whenever I'm on. I feel like theists don't call. I don't know if it's because I'm terrifying or because I'm a whammons and they're not supposed to publicly get owned by somebody like me. But I'm really hoping there's a theist in the audience who's really interested in giving a call. No one has called to talk to me about the soul in ages, and I'm itching to talk about it. It's like a public challenge. I would like to throw down the gamut to have people call in to talk to me about morality or the soul. But I don't know. Gauntlet. I said gamut. That was weird. Yeah, I would like very much for a theist to call in. I know you guys are all over my Twitter and you're all over my Facebook and you're all over my YouTube comments. Yeah. So I know you're there. And I know you say you can own me. So please come do it. No one ever comes, Jimmy. Why do you think people are like that?
I think we won. I think we've defeated theism.
We did it.
Yeah. Some of it is we recently changed the show time to 2:00, and for some reason it means that a lot of theists wait longer to make their first calls, and I don't know. That's actually
get back from church.
That could be. Okay, now the audio is going to sound way worse. Let me fix that. Boom. That could be. Shit. Let me. Man, I am just having a great time.
I'm sorry that you're having a bad time. I'm having a great time.
No, this is what happens when you have to take time off and you're sick, and then a bunch of board updates and stuff come through, and you've got to update all of your stuff, and then you think you did it last minute, and then you find out you didn't do it last minute, and then everything's your fault.
And I'm a jinx.
Hello, darkness.
Everything's usually my fault. No. Everything is almost always my fault. I am always the problem. We established that before the show even started. That if there is a problem and somebody needed to do something and it's not done, it's almost definitely the piece that was assigned to me.
The thing I enjoy
that is the problem.
The thing I enjoy so much is how much I get blamed for every time the show is like, okay, granted today we were 1 minute late and it was because I was just talking about Joe Rogan, but I get blamed every time the show starts late. and it's almost never me. It's almost always
Guest.
a guest. But
Yeah.
I'm not going to go and throw a guest under just because they were given a link 30 minutes ahead of time and we're like, so 4 minutes in advance is enough, right? That'll be enough to troubleshoot if I come in and my mic doesn't work. Anyway, Arlindo, say something. Let me see if we hear you better now and if it's going out okay.
Yeah, sure. So what was I saying? I'm here to talk about the James Webb Space Telescope and its discovery. How do I sound?
I hear you fine. Shannon, are you hearing Arlindo?
Yeah. I'm hearing you
All right,
okay.
Hi, Shannon.
Let's pretend we're starting over for the sake of a clip. Arlindo in the UK, you are on the line on the Sunday show and you wanted to talk about something with the James Webb Telescope. Let's hear it.
Hello, Jimmy. Hello, Shannon. Yeah, so
Hello.
basically the James... Oh, hi. Yeah, so basically the James Webb Space Telescope observed some senior galaxies, so to speak, that shouldn't be where they are. So they've practically appeared in a time when the universe had barely got going. So in its infancy, so to speak. And I find it very, very strange. I mean, some scientists are saying maybe we don't know everything there is to know about galaxy formation, or maybe what we're observing isn't really galaxies but something else. There are some other the laws of physics being different at that time. I think it's only like 3%. They exist at 3% the age of the current age of the universe. So that would be just a few 100 million years after the Big Bang, which seems like a lot, but really isn't. And they're saying maybe the laws of physics were different and it sped up galaxy formation. But I have a different theory. But
Okay. Arlindo, I do want to ask, are we bringing this to a theme of religion and God and theism? Because that is sort of the theme of Sunday show, or is this more of a science thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Because we have scientists on
right.
tomorrow. Professor Dave and Aron Ra are holding down Skeptalk tomorrow, but go ahead.
Yeah, I saw them coming up. Yeah, I was just about to say, before I go into my theory, and I'll make it very brief, I just want to say, do you guys want to discuss what you might have heard from religious communities about this discovery? Because I can just imagine theists lining up saying, it's a miracle, God put those galaxies there to show up scientists, and God is all powerful and scientists don't know anything about God's reality, and God's showing them up, and that's his miracle, basically. I can just imagine religious people saying that. I mean, have you guys heard anything or?
No, because I mean, we're still talking about something that exists in those scales of billions of years ago, which the people who are religious and most likely to engage in those sorts of discussions aren't usually going to concede that that's even like the people who already think the universe isn't young are going to still say whatever was happening back then follows natural laws and stuff, because they don't see God's hand anywhere except the Big Bang. Usually, if you're trying to do the intelligent design thing, that God's the one who clicked his fingers and the Big Bang happened, but that's pretty much what it's limited to. So no, I haven't seen anybody coming with the new discoveries from the James Webb Telescope is proof of anything, personally.
Yeah, I just read a bit of the Time article about it, and they're 320 to 350 million years after the Big Bang is when they think these galaxies came from. Yeah, which they think is early for galaxy formation, but they don't know enough about what they're comprised of and how they were formed to really make any assertions. They did the observations over a course of 10 days, and they brought the infrared technology in to do some assistance in aging it. This is relatively new information, unless you're a young Earth creationist, in which case you wouldn't believe the age of the galaxy anyway. And if you're somebody who's, an old Earth creationist or whatever other flavor of apologist or religious, this would exist within your current paradigm. So I'm not sure that it would say anything, and I don't think that there's enough information right now to say that it's even deviating fully from what we anticipated. It's just like they just don't know what they're comprised of or how they formed that quickly.
Yeah.
And then they'll just incorporate
Yeah.
that and update the science.
At best, you might get it added to
Yeah.
the list of, see, science was wrong in the past, as though science ever said
Yeah.
you can only form galaxies at this time, as opposed to something like our current understanding of models would suggest that galaxy formation began X amount of years after the Big Bang.
That's what I'd anticipate.
Yeah, that's
the
I
only way you
think
could
the
use
worst
it.
yet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah,
agree.
That's right. You know what? I'd be more interested to hear about old Earth creationists than young Earth creationists, because the latter will just flat out deny it, like you said. But yeah, it's just really striking, because I've read just that our galaxy has taken about 12 billion years just to amass as many stars as it has today. And they are saying that some of these objects appear to be galaxies that seem bigger than our galaxy, and there just hasn't been enough time for them to form since the Big Bang, because they seem to be as old. They'd have to be as old as the universe is today. So I came up with this theory. I don't know if anyone out there has come up with it before me. It wouldn't surprise me anyway, but I've got this theory that perhaps we are looking at, here's my theory, right? That we are looking at galaxies from another universe, and that a much older universe bumped into our own when ours was only a baby. And when it bumped into our own, I know this sounds crazy, it injected some of its galaxies into our baby universe. So these galaxies formed in another universe. They spent their time, maturing, becoming
Arlindo,
senior, as it were.
you know I enjoy you. You know I enjoy talking. But if we're going to do this, let's do it off air and get high. Because this is so like, what if
But you do be ready.
universal panspermia? Now hear me out. Okay, here's what I think happened. What happened was, your hypothesis is super interesting, of course, but we have no reason to believe it, but it sounds cool. And when I'm high, I will fucking love it. And I've been getting high a lot lately. I used to not, people will remember, I used to talk about how straight edge I was on. Well, no one will remember because no one watches me. But the joke I used to make is I'm so straight edge, I don't even wear condoms. But that's more to point out that actually, compared to when I was a Mormon, I live more of a Mormon life. I don't drink alcohol. I rarely drink coffee. I'm actually back to that. I go through. Anyway, I don't even remember why I was bringing that up. I probably just wanted to make my condom joke. But I'm getting high a lot lately. This is by far more of a conversation for smoking weed than it is for, there's no reason for us to think that in the same way where it's even, let's just think about a localized panspermia model. There are people who think because Mars was slightly more prepared for life earlier than Earth was, that there's a likelihood that the building blocks for life were born on Mars. Something slammed into Mars and brought that very simple form of life, or the thing that just precedes life, these sort of even less than RNA self-replicating molecules. And then that slammed into Earth. And that is where actually that we're all Martians, basically, because life on Earth actually started on Mars. And there's a hypothetical model that totally actually works in. We don't actually yet know that there's for sure a multiverse, even though it seems very likely. But we know these physical realities exist. And still, we cannot say there is good enough reason to say, I think that did happen, even though we can prove that localized panspermia is completely plausible and possible. We've probably done it already. We've probably not accounted for some life form and seeded life in some other place that then promptly died, but we gave it a try.
Yeah, we can only speculate. I was
Exactly.
going to say, my theory is more like a hypothesis.
It is.
And basically, I was thinking, I don't know if you've heard of that dark spot in the afterglow of the Big Bang, the cosmic background radiation. It seems to be like billions of light years wide. And I was thinking, could that be the rupture from the collision with another universe?
Wait, am I mistaking?
Through which the galaxy...
The dark spot, I think, is our blind spot. We just physically can't see it because of limitations of the way we look, I thought.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. Yeah,
okay.
I think this is a different kind of. I'm not sure if they call it a dark spot, but it's got another name. And scientists say, oh, it was probably caused by quantum fluctuations that gave rise to our Big Bang,
so
and then it just came out.
By the way,
But
if a scientist says
that's
quantum fluctuations, they get a little bit more credibility, but quantum fluctuations is usually a cop-out taken by lay people, scientists, and Deepak Chopra. So we might get an explanation one day, for the record.
Yeah, no, I get it. I'm not an expert, but, I love to think about these things.
Sure.
And it's definitely something to get high on.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Orlando. Well, I appreciate it. Let's get high sometime. Somebody said you should do that on the line. I'm too afraid to get high on air. I really am. Just because 90% of the time it's great, but that 10% of the time where I have a panic attack or something at the beginning is not worth doing that, of risking that on air.
No.
Yeah. Anyway.
We can still have without getting high anyway, but yeah.
Can we?
But yeah, thanks.
I'm just kidding. See you later, Orlando.
Bye, Orlando. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Shannon. Take care, Jimmy.
Oh, it's all right. I cut it a little. My timing was just slightly off. Yeah, and luckily we do have the call you wanted to take is lining up. We're gonna get to talk to a theist about the soul. Mm-hmm.
It works. Yay!
Yeah, I was willing to throw out a challenge too, because I've put in the chat, and this is interesting to me because I think about half of you I think are nuts, so wrong, and I'm willing to have a respectful conversation about that, because the poll in the chat I wrote was, should scientists engage in public debate to be taken seriously? I promise to be respectful, but my position is no. Scientists should not take part in public debate for the purpose. I'm not saying scientists should not do public debates ever, though many scientists I would say that about. I am saying it should not be. The position they should do that, and again, for the purpose of being taken seriously, is yes. I could not disagree more. So if you disagree with me,
such a different skill set though, like public speaking, and especially engaging in like public dialogue.
Shannon, you're ruining it.
Productively?
Make them call.
I'm ruining what?
Make them call. Make them call.
Maybe they'll disagree with me.
No, but you and I are
and fight with Jimmy.
No. Fight with us, because you and I are on the same side. Not fight. I think it will be more useful to have somebody. Otherwise, I would have just done our whole conversation we were having before the show right at the top. I think it'd be more useful to have somebody call in and for people to hear us in the form of a discussion that is us disagreeing, hear the back and forth point, than it is to just say what the points we're going to make when they call in now are. So ruin was a mean word. I should have said spoilers, Shannon. These are spoilers. Because I've already got like 4 lines in my head where I'm like, okay, what about this that I'm ready with too? But I really, I would love to talk to somebody who is sort of in that world of like their favorite YouTubers are, and by the way, these are people I like, but if you are even on our side, but you agree because you love people like Vosh, Hassan, you're watching all of the debate bros, the Destinys, the Xander Halls. By the way, Vosh and I are friendly. He's been on the show before. It's always weird. Do you say you're friends or do you say you're friendly? Because we don't hang out. But we like each other. But then some of the other people on the list, I don't actually know. I think Destiny might be one of those controversial ones. I don't know. I don't keep track of who and
I didn't
who
hear
is
anybody on your list that wouldn't be classified in some circle as controversial.
Sure, that's true. I in my circles, I think Destiny might be controversial, but I don't keep track of those things. Yesterday, did you know there's somebody out there apparently that has mass awareness called Sneeko? Have you heard of Sneeko?
Oh my God, yes.
The fuck is that? First of all,
in the manosphere,
stupid
bro.
name. And then somebody else was yesterday. Who was it? Somebody was like trying to tell me like, well, but what about what happened between Sneeko and I was thinking about getting on Kick, and they were like, don't go to Kick. That's where Sneeko and Aron Ra. Does that sound right?
That name doesn't mean anything to me. Sneeko does though.
Okay. I don't know who the fuck these people are. And you know what? I'm proud of
Lucky
that.
you.
Based on some of the responses
Good.
I've seen, I'm actually pretty proud of my lack of awareness. Sneeko's apparently a Nazi. Okay, well, cool. I think Matt debated Destiny at some point on abortion and the autonomy argument, maybe? I don't know. Anyway, I don't care. Let's talk about the soul while people decide. Seriously, if you're in that like debate's the highest form of everything. And I want you to keep in mind who I am telling you that debate is mostly sacks of garbage. I want to keep in mind what I do for a living and what new shows we're about to launch on this channel. I want you to keep in mind who it is with this message for you. If you are very much on that side of, yes, scientists should be publicly engaging in debate. Even if you feel like you're going to be a little bit mad and argumentative, even better, I want you to call and talk. But in the meantime, while we have Shannon does have a hard stop in a little bit over an hour. If I still have theists or argumentative people on the line, I'll keep going at that point. If I don't, I'll take a break between then and the Book of Mormon. But in the meantime, Shannon's here to talk to Sven from Washington, who, hang on a second, I'm very confused. Sven, I thought, never mind. Okay, Sven, you're on the line with Shannon. You want to talk about the soul and morality. You are a theist. I don't believe you're a traditional theist. I think you were somewhat deistic, maybe a bit pagan, if I'm remembering you correctly. Go ahead and tell us about you and what you're calling about.
Yeah, I had called Matt on a Not Sunday show and updated him that he made me realize I would kind of have to say I'm a theist because with being a classical Platonist, I believe in archetypes.
Okay.
And so what most humans would call gods, I guess I would have to believe in my worldview. I just don't concern myself with the term God. So that's why I didn't really want to be called a theist. But I guess logically, if Matt wants to put it that way, I have to identify as a theist.
No, well,
but
okay.
I don't culturally ever like to do that.
Let's be clear. If you are given an option, so you call into a show, and it is, are you a theist or an atheist? That is truly a binary choice. You either are or you aren't. You either are convinced or you're not convinced. Your personal identification is not what either of us are trying to regulate. Matt would agree with me here. I'm positive he's here. Whether or not you want to go around and say and identify to other people, hey, I am a theist or I am an atheist, is not. Now, if you start using the terms incorrectly and you do use one of the identifiers and they don't mean what you're saying they mean, that might be met with some level of correction or suspicion. But when you call into the show and we ask you, are you a theist or an atheist? You either believe in God or you don't. And not knowing, not being sure, not whatever, all of those can be in the don't column because you aren't convinced there is a God. You either are convinced or you're not. Anyway, but that's, I just wanted to make sure that was clear because I don't want people to go around thinking we're saying you must identify with the labels we tell you to. Identification is a personal thing. But when it calls in, and our question is, are you theist or an atheist? That's basically where that comes in. Anyway, Sven, do you want to talk to Shannon about the soul?
Yay.
Yeah, hi, Shannon. So it is kind of important for my worldview to solve the problem of evil. And I've never liked how the Neoplatonic view blames Adam and Eve for making the choice to eat the apple, because I do believe that, like Plato and Socrates, that no one willfully does evil. And I know, like in modern psychiatry or psychology, there's like acrasia, the weakness of will. Did you have any thoughts on that? Are you familiar with that topic?
Are you more so talking about morality then, presumably, than the soul?
Yeah, you said soul and morality, and I think one of the
okay, sorry, I just got confused because Jimmy said the soul.
Yeah, I just
okay,
one of the clear actions of soul, and to me, one of the visible ways of measuring a soul or to see the soul in action in this universe is to see people doing good. And so I don't think people willfully do evil. I think they just lack the knowledge to do good.
You don't think people willfully do? That's an interesting statement in and of itself to me. So you don't think anybody would willfully do something that harmed another person?
I don't think they would ever do anything that would be against the better judgment. And so, yes, harming other people would be.
What does the better judgment mean? Does better, like,
To be just, to be good, morality.
to be just, to
justice.
be good to whom? Like, because people, I think, demonstrably kind of prioritize their own interests and the interests of those they care about over the interests of others around them. Would you see that as an intrinsic good? Because then that seems like a slippery slope to utilize that as justification to harm people in general and classify it as good so long as it protects you and people you care about.
No, that's why the qualifier of like better judgment is there always, because it does have to qualify that you are accepting there is a form of the good, the just. And so every act must be acting in accordance to the best judgment possible. So harming other people is never just. You would just lack the knowledge to do better and to know that harming others is bad.
See, I don't think anything about morality is quite that black and white, because even that I could think of an exception to, right? So
Yeah, me too.
right, yeah. So you could harm somebody else to defend yourself or to defend a group of people. So we couldn't use the qualifier never there. So I think morality is
courage
like
and
go ahead.
courage and bravery have to be qualifiers to act against the demiurge or against evil, so they are not pure virtues like justice, because you are having to.
But I thought in your perception
To
there was
address
no
what you're
such thing
saying,
as
like
evil.
Anne Frank, I guess the classic example, if I'm following your argument, would be like, is it right to lie to the Nazis to hide Anne Frank? Is that correct? Is that where you're going?
That would be one example. Like that would be one example of an exception to a rule. But now I'm even more interested. So you don't think I'm getting confused, because initially you said that you don't think that there is such a thing as a person doing an evil deed. Like, what would you describe as evil then? Because now we're talking about justice, which means that there is a definitive good and a definitive bad. So what qualifies
That's where
as
the
bad?
soul would come in. Well, that's where the soul would come in, because like we are acting against the demiurge. So like natural disasters, cancer, anything that can come from animalistic natural disasters that don't involve the soul, a collective consciousness in a human shell that we are experiencing is evil. So people who are doing evil things are doing things lacking their soul. They're doing bad things, no justice.
So when people are doing good things, that is their soul. But when people are making bad decisions and doing bad things, then they've divorced themselves temporarily from a soul.
Not divorced temporarily, but we are always, we are in a material body, so we are connected with the material world, the demiurge, where we do not get to make decisions that determine this world, but there's something that allows us to make good decisions to fight the natural evils that, even a lot of theists would say were the natural evils.
Convoluted and confusing to me. So
It's so contradictory to itself.
Yeah, it seems to be, because you're saying that there is a soul and there is no such thing as bad, except for when bad things happen, that means that the soul is no longer engaged. So, but it's all deterministic, which means that everything that was going to happen is going to happen regardless.
Can I ask a few questions? I want to see if I can clear it up and get a little maybe Socratic
please help
here.
me, because I'm confused.
Yeah, I'm also. There's some clarity that's necessary, Sven. So
Could
Sven,
I do the one qualifier of the sentence of what I was saying so that it is out there? Because even when my original premise, evil does exist. It says no human acts evil willfully or voluntarily.
Okay.
So there is evil acts.
So Sven, let's go with an extreme example: a psychopath. And a psychopath gets joy, gets dopamine, gets serotonin, gets that feeling of affirmation by harming somebody. And we'll say the specific harm in this case is it really makes them feel incredible to stab somebody. And that's the way their mind reacts. That's what they get their affirmations from, validation from, is stabbing somebody. So in that scenario, what has happened to that person that is not that person acting evilly, that is not that person electing to be evil, despite the fact that in every meaningful definition of the word choice, they have made that choice for their own enjoyment?
Yeah, we would definitely have to take in a pleasure. That is an effect. So I think that's what you're getting at. They are.
No, I'm not getting at anything. I'm
Well,
asking the
it's
question.
seeking-
What has happened? What has happened when that person has made the choice to do harm to somebody else? You say no one makes the choice to do evil. So please make that work for me.
Yes, they only know that to them the best dopamine they can get is by killing another person. So they are therefore lacking, obviously, tons of justice, goodness, and solely
The overwhelming
in their
majority
mind,
of
they
serial
have such a
killers
sad
were
life
during
that
interview
they-
were aware that what they were doing was wrong when they've been interviewed, and they are aware of, they know that they are harming somebody, that this is more than just what they get their dopamine from. So again, it is a choice with awareness of the harm being done.
and they have come to the conclusion that that is the best life that they could live, and that is
No.
to me means they are lacking a lot of knowledge.
No.
What you said? No.
No,
You
not
don't think they're
true.
living their
So
best
many
life?
serial killers have been interviewed. This is where I go in and I say, Sven, sorry, I'm getting a little bit heated. This is one of those things where it feels a little bit kind of like the first conversation where it's like, this seems like something somebody comes up with when they're like, yeah, but what if the universe works like this or what? Tons of serial killers have been interviewed. Many of them are aware of the harm and feel nothing about it. And they have this sort of narcissistic, what the fuck do I care? If I could kill everybody to get out of this prison, I would. And then a huge group of them, I think Kemper is probably the most famous example, were tortured by how evil they were. Were tortured that these compulsions were so strong. Were tortured that they did those things, wanted to be put to death, wanted to be killed because of the evil that they had done. So there are even people who in the moment acted on a compulsion that they knew was evil and they would regret. And by the way, we went with the extreme. Most of us have had minor examples of that, of I'm going to pick something right now that I know is bad for the temporary feeling of relief I will get, despite this larger, grander idea I have. A lot of people do this with drugs. A lot of people do it with alcohol. Some people do it in social settings. People who fight other people, especially when you're past your 30s and fighting, you always lose if you're past 30. Even when you win, it fucking hurts for days after, even when you win a fight. But there's no... This thing that you're saying is as though this entire thing is happening on an ethereal plane that we have no reason to believe is actually happening, and that it's actually contradictory to what we are seeing and studying and measuring and people are reporting are their experience. And this idea that people don't choose to do evil, first you have to define evil, because you're suggesting that these are objective standards when they aren't. And then you'd also have to define harm, because even your thing about doing harm sometimes is the good thing to do. So you can't use words like you did earlier of never. Chemo is harm. Ask Hank Green about it right now. It's fucking poison. And yet sometimes you harm to hurt the other harm, and you hope that you kill the other harm before it kills you and before the chemo. It's fucking terrible. So I don't understand. So please, maybe start over if you need to, and reconcile some of these things, because it sounds extremely contradictory what you're presenting, Sven.
Certainly. So that was a lot. I'll try to address. If you need me to stay more on topic, let me know. To stay light or on topic of what I was saying, even just as light as lying, the Germans. You are still withholding information from them, and as a just person, that is never good. And that's why I said things like bravery and courage are not pure virtues, because they require you to do an evil act to overcome a worse evil. So you are still trying to make this world, a bad material world, more just by behaving in a bad manner. Like you can do small evils to overcome a worse evil.
Sven, are you circularly arguing that good things aren't always good and bad things aren't always, or evil things aren't always bad if you just change the standard?
No, I'm saying they are always evil. Even though you are lying to do a better good, it is still bad to lie, because it is unjust to withhold information from another soul.
So is evil sometimes right? correct? Is evil sometimes the
evil
correct
is
course of
sometimes
action?
necessary.
This seems like a really I have
Pedantic.
two things that I find it is a little pedantic, but I think I get what he's saying. Like, if you have this system of morality that where these descriptors are very stringent and must be adhered to, then you can't have exceptions to the rule, right? And so since you can't have exceptions to the rule, you're forced into like the philosophical corner. That means that even if you're doing something that is for the betterment, right? Like, even if you're doing something that's like demonstrably going to cause the most good overall, but that action in and of itself is in most other circumstances classified as something that is evil, you still have to classify it as evil in that moment. You just give it additional qualifiers for justification. But I'm still like, I've just been sitting here stewing about this whole soul thing, because it seems like your whole definition of the soul is like this sort of post hoc rationalization about like the best version of what is good. And therefore, in order to like an idealistic version of humanity, I guess, because I'm assuming you don't extend it to other creatures and other plants and other living things. Which means that when somebody is doing something that is not the best idealistic version of humanity, then you can no longer hold to that being the soul. So you have to kind of remove the soul in that moment in order for your definition of the soul to be adhered to. And that is wild to me, because then you're forcing yourself into this position where you have to hold to the belief that we are simultaneously a soul and also not. Like, you have to have like that true dichotomy and then there's no continuous sense of self allowed for in that perspective, which is wild to me. Like, you would be one type of thing in one moment and another type of thing in another moment, based on determinations that you've made. And since you're consistently in a spot where you're making determinations about what types of actions that you're going to be making in the future or in the moment, then you would never have that type of good soul, because your thoughts would betray you by planning out and weighing the options of your future actions. If you are that idealistic version in the moment when you're enacting the best things, the good things, you can't simultaneously be the idealistic thing. The necessary thing.
Remember,
you can't simultaneously be that and even entertain the types of thoughts that would allow you to do the thing that isn't idealistic. Otherwise, that seems contradictory to me. Does that make sense?
Possibly. I am trying to keep up. Hopefully this is the direction you're going. I would say in a moment of, I could never like take someone's life for my own life. That's just not how I feel such a strong conviction against murder. But if I were having to protect a child and to murder someone, I wouldn't say that like my soul exits my body. I would say I'm still not acting out of evil willfully. I am taking the best assumption of that situation that I can to assess the better good. And so I'm still acting out of, my best judgment.
So why do you need any of this soul stuff, though, if you're just making judgments and deliberations and then making the best decision determined by what information you have available to you? Wouldn't that make the most sense? Isn't the rest of it just like a complicated addition that doesn't add anything at all to your knowledge of how we make decisions and make choices?
Yeah, I would certainly say it definitely adds something. I would never deny that. I think it is an additional axiom that is important to spiritual people like me.
It requires justification, though, because it is an additional axiom.
Right.
It makes it more difficult for you to explain reality as you see it, not easier.
I have a clarifying question.
It's not more difficult to me.
I have a clarifying.
It's 100% more difficult.
For me, it would.
I have a clarifying question, because you brought up the example of saving a child by killing a person. In that scenario, based on what you said earlier, that's still an evil act, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So what makes an act evil or good? If there is a single bad outcome, it's now evil, or a single evil action or a single evil consequence, it is now in totality evil?
No, I would say it's more of an absolute morality, like not objective to a person, and us they're subjective. It's more aligned with absolute morality, where the action.
How do you have
itself
access
is
to that
always
to know what
evil.
is or is not moral?
We can't. I think that's another part of souls, is that we have to accept that we can't see the big picture. We can't exit space time and
Sven,
So
the problem,
how do you determine what is good or bad then? If you're saying that the system
Yeah.
of values that determines what is good or bad is inaccessible to us, then we're using something else.
yeah.
We're
not
using
even just
something
that,
else.
everything's evil because
I-
everything has
I
a
like
negative
lot of
consequence.
secular humanists.
Valid point.
There's not a good thing you could do that you couldn't in what you're describing wouldn't have an evil. Even me just having a hot dog that I could have given to a person who was going to starve, but instead I ate, has now an unintended negative consequence. And this thing that should have just been amoral, it's just me eating a hot dog, has become evil by these weird definitions. Sven,
Yeah.
I guess you can address that if you like, and then I think I have a follow-up question because this is just sort of like, I don't know. Go ahead, address the hot dog.
I would say you're probably spot on, and I have been in therapy for like 8 years, existential, logotherapy focused, because it is quite sad to consider that, every little purchase I have is something that could have gone to someone else. But that is a truth that I have to accept in the
Why?
current
Okay,
state
so
of the
this
demiurge.
is where we
It
want to get
keeps me
to.
alive.
What good reason do you have to believe this thing you're presenting?
I unfortunately don't have anything surprising. It's just the typical hard problem of consciousness. I am convinced by a dualist approach. I think that
super not.
experience and qualia are very personal.
But
I'm not sure what rabbit hole you would like me to go down.
no, I just want you to answer what's a good reason to believe what you believe. Saying that qualia is personal and all of that sort of, that's not a satisfactory answer because you're talking about something that.
The good reason is that it's the way it appears. It is 100% a way that the arguments and all the philosophy point to me to the best explanation for the current chaos of the world.
So your answer is, my understanding and entirely subjective experience is what I think is the most reliable method of determining the very secrets to the universe, as opposed to trying to find external validation with only the presupposition that I exist.
Well, I think someone had asked earlier, I was going to say how do you do that? And I was going to say I do like secular humanist approaches more than like utilitarianism.
Could we answer my question instead of the other person's?
What was it?
I think I was the other person.
Oh, could have been. But my question was, is it your position that your subjective internal experience is superior to determining the secrets of the universe as you've presented here than trying to find external validation with only the presupposition, because we shouldn't need any more than this, that we exist?
I believe my answer is yes. I think that when referring to consciousness, everything we have to experience is through our experience.
So Sven,
I think there's something to be said about that. Yes, I believe it's the answer.
Sven, you are from it seems like, anyway, I could be wrong, but you use they, them pronouns. I assume that means that you are a member of the greater queer community. You come across a person who says, I will not give queer people rights. I will do everything I can to stop them from having rights. I will do everything to stop them from using pronoun identifiers that they want. I will stop them from transitioning. I will stop them. I believe, because I believe in my heart, through my experiences, through my personal experience with qualia, that is the right thing. And now this person has the same basis for their belief as you have for yours. But fundamentally, I'm sure, Sven, you believe they are wrong. Upon what basis would you tell them that they are wrong?
I would provide good arguments to increase their understanding, because I
Give me
believe
one.
they lack a certain knowledge. I wouldn't have anything superior to show them in their DNA that they are wrong about this decision
In their
they are
DNA.
making.
Why would it? Yeah, I don't think. I assume you meant figuratively in the DNA. I hope. So why should
I
anybody
think you
change
meant
their mind?
literally.
Sven, did you mean literally or did you mean figuratively?
I just meant materialistically, neurologically. I can't give them
I think that's why he's
brain
going
scan to be
towards
like,
like an
look,
ethereal
you're
soul. Or
you're
sorry, they. I
lacking
think that's
with
why they're
empathy.
going. Sven is one
We're
of
in
the
a-
reasons that
Go ahead.
you're going towards. And I apologize for misgendering you. That's entirely my fault. My bad. I apologize.
I actually use
It's
any
one of
and all pronouns. It's just hard to get across. So you can
No, still,
identify me
this
as
is
a-
this is
however
what you
please.
this is what you indicated, and I owe you an apology. That's entirely on me. But I think that you did mean that literally, because if based on listening to you and Jimmy interact, it seems to me that one of the reasons that you have this connectivity between the soul and morality is because you don't see anything like there's no such thing as tangible, physical, material morality. Like I can't pick up this star and be like, this is a piece of morality. Like there's nothing I can touch and use sense perception to feel. It's not like encoded in my DNA, like you mentioned. So so for morality to exist objectively, if you believe in it objectively, you need to have access to it somehow. And you know that there's no material access to it. And since there's no material access to it, you need to add an axiom. And that axiom is that we have something like a soul, and that soul is connected through some form of existential knowledge to these ideas of objective morality that exist in that realm and then are channeled through our physical bodies. Is that an accurate depiction?
I believe so. I do think our souls are constantly connected to the realm of the forms. We are seeing a reflection
Right.
of the forms at all times. Is that
Okay,
is
cool.
that
So I'm
what you were
understanding you.
insisting, I believe? Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm understanding. I'm understanding your perspective now. Where we're going to differ is that I don't think that there is such a thing as objective morality. I think morality is a construct, like a human created construct.
Yeah.
Which is why we're running into all of these issues. And like with Jimmy's question and with my questions about like, how do you determine what is right and wrong? I think that we use rationalizations and justifications to determine what is right and wrong. I think you also do. I think you do, because I think you can articulate why something is right or wrong. I don't think that you could just say something is right or wrong and expect everybody around you to tacitly accept that, because we would have access to the same information in that plane, right? What we deem as moral requires justification. Requires justification to adhere to. It requires justification to function. It requires justification to explain. If your view was correct, I would anticipate and expect as a result of that we would all have equal access to what is or is not moral and tacitly understand it without the requirement of explanation or justification. The fact that we need to explain and justify, I think, is better evidence for our position. Did I lose you?
Any thoughts, Sven?
Not too much. I guess it is also part of my worldview that as there's some kind of collective working together of the soul, and that's why society is, as a whole has gotten better over time, and somehow societies all started at the same time, and it could be evolution. But
Societies
argue
expand
it's
and
because-
collapse in cycles. I don't know what you mean, but
Yeah. And also what we perceive as better is probably by virtue of us having access to like more media that allows us to have interconnectedness with people who are of other groups. Because a lot of the reason that we treat each other poorly is because we silo ourselves into individual tribes. It's more difficult to do that and justify it if you have exposure to a broader array of types of people. And living in a digital age takes a lot of the ability to justify that with a sense of anonymity away from us.
certainly. I guess that is it. I'm not going to argue it's not. It's deeply personal, and I will always be first to admit that. It is something that just literally means
Sven, but
the most of the.
do you know what?
It describes me.
It's
it
funny
is my
though,
purpose and meaning. So
because we're talking about
it's
things
not
which
anything scientific.
we're talking about things which are evil and good, and if we have to just give them those two qualifications, if something is either good or if it's not good, it's evil, or if it's lacking the good, it's evil, then the concept of I believe just on the basis of it being deeply personal is something I consider evil. Because what you're describing is faith. What you're describing is a system by which my truth is something I have intuited through deep feelings. And that is a proven method, I would say, to deceive people, and first oneself, to deceive your own self before anybody else often enough. Actually, not before anybody else. Usually you're deceived first too. But it's why I gave the example earlier. Upon the basis of what you are describing, you and I, after we get past where we disagree, probably agree on most other stuff. We're probably both humanistic. But if my humanism comes from a place of minimum amounts of presuppositions, because I'm not even positive we need the single presupposition we need. I just don't think we've articulated. It may be just a failure of articulation so far, or a failure of identifying the proof of our own existence, the sort of solipsistic problem. But if we go from there, that minimum amount of presupposition, because we can't get away without at least that, but adding anything additional is unreasonable. And we get to humanism, in the way how we get there matters, because whatever foundation I build my humanism on, I have to be able to defend that a person who is anti-humanistic is wrong for being that way as I look back at that foundation. Whereas your foundation does not exempt anybody if believing with just this personal, strong, intuitive, I just really, really feel like it's this way. And it sounds like your answer to why you believe the soul exists is I just really, really feel like it does. I cannot tell a person that the thing they're saying is good that I identify as harm is wrong if I use the same foundational principles you use.
Right. Functionally useless.
So do you see where the issue comes in, where I go like, Sven, it's not about that I'm not going to believe on the way you believe, because you already knew that when you called in. I'm telling you, you shouldn't believe on that foundation. To believe in this version of faith, to believe with this version of faith, is setting yourself up to deceive yourself. And so even right now, where our overlap on what actually people should and shouldn't do would be great, it will eventually diverge. And it's not, and I think that's a negative thing. And again, if we have to use your specific qualifiers, I think it actually prompts you to be more evil than a person who doesn't use those same principles.
Yeah, I think that the best way to get towards moral systems is to reason your way towards them. And I think that's what we've done throughout time, poorly to a certain degree, and improving as our ability to reason and access to others improves.
Yeah.
I appreciate
But people
that.
so want it to be objective.
No,
For sure.
Yeah, I get it.
I appreciate chatting with you.
Yeah, it was nice.
Certainly.
Thank you for taking my challenge. Have a
Yeah,
great
no
day,
problem.
Sven.
Sorry it wasn't much of a challenge, but just was my view of it.
It was fascinating. It's always worth having a conversation about, for sure. It's an important topic.
As long as you're going to go away from this thinking about what we said and you're not actually secretly here, sort of the way Emmanuel is, to just go, I know I'm going to lose this argument, but on the chance that I get the one person in the audience to agree with me, then that's worth it because I'm actually here to proselytize. As long as you're actually going to think about what we said, I consider the call a success.
They don't strike me
Yeah,
as
no,
the
just
kind.
2 weeks ago, I was calling in as a spiritual atheist, and now I have to call in as a theist. So I do respect and reflect on the calls.
Sure.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Helios.
Thanks, Sven.
Sorry, Sven. I'm looking at the future calls. Thank you, Sven.
Spoilers.
There's a person, called Helios. The weirdest thing is happening. I've been seeing it a bunch. Lots of people are calling in. They're putting in their topic, and then they're either dropping, or lots of people are calling in. They're getting to the screener, and then they're dropping on hold. We have calls. We've had some calls I really wanted to take that then didn't stay on the line, which is super disappointing. nobody so far has either called in or stayed on the line to argue on behalf of the proposition. Nearly 600 people of you voted. Of that, about 250 of you voted that yes, scientists should engage in public debate to be taken seriously, which is the position I don't hold. You've just seen we can have a perfectly respectful conversation with people we disagree with. And I'd love to have that for a conversation like this perfectly reasonable conversation we just had with Sven about that proposition with somebody. Yes, obviously I'm going to be very direct in my criticisms of your position, but not going to be mean unless you start being an asshole or you start trying to talk over me. Those are usually the ways that goes.
I'll be mean right away.
Yeah. Whenever somebody starts the asshole competition, I go like, oh, I'm an okay debater. I'm an amazing asshole. Yeah, let me get limber. Let me get ready for it. But yeah, I'd really love to have that call. Also, with however many of you are watching, about 1,100 of you watching, if we can get that 666 likes, but also by hitting like, it does tell the algorithm to go show more people the video. And so if showing more people means a higher chance of more theists calling in, obviously that's who we try to give priority to. And yeah, we had a deist who had called a bit ago and dropped. We've got a couple things lining up. So because I already said the name, let's get Helios on here. This will probably be quick because I don't see a question. It almost seems like Helios, are you just calling to make a point?
Sort of. Also, yes, I was very confused when you called me before I could talk.
This is my bad brain.
Yes. It's okay. Almost everyone's brain is bad.
Yeah. So generally, I will say this: we generally try to make sure that these are staying on topic of conversation of back and forth.
They are,
and especially
they are, but kind of roundabout.
And especially when a sympathetic person calls in, it's usually just meant to be, "What's your question?" and then we answer it and we move on. So if we can just be kind of prompt, I do have another theist caller lined up that I want to get to, and then another soul caller. So yeah, if we could be prompt here.
Okay, so here we don't have functional mental health facilities or caretakers. My uncle was in the army. It seemed he had PTSD, but no one treated him. Something triggered and he attacked my mother. After that, he ran out on the street, and after a few years, the social worker that visited him found him dead. It really, really disgusted me how people I know talked about him as if a demon possessed him and that he should have been more pious or something.
That's reprehensible.
That's the disgusting part about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, something about the military training. It's not classified. It's just pass. I don't think they do this anymore. But for his training, he was shipped to some part of Russia, maybe Siberia, without anything but the clothes on his back. And his assignment was to get back to his country in less than 7 days. So
Yikes.
He never told me anything bad. He always wanted to teach me something I could do, I could use. He taught me how to start a fire. He taught me how to make friends. And he basically made it possible for me to have an early education and whatnot, because my mother's job wouldn't allow her to see her son off to daycare or something. So
I'm really sorry that all of that happened to your uncle and to you.
Yeah,
Our mental health
Yeah,
care systems around the world need serious fixing. Even in the countries where they're touted to be the best, they're still not good enough.
Yeah, the
Part of the
interception
reason I
of
think,
and it,
Jimmy, I think you were going to say
part of
almost exactly the same thing that
reason
I was going to
the
say,
mental
which
health
is that
system.
Helios. Hang on a sec. Hang on. Go ahead.
I
Shannon.
think that you were going to say almost the exact same thing that I was going to say is part of the reason that we don't take mental health seriously enough has to do with religious ideation.
Yeah.
It's because people perceive that as like a soul issue or an issue with the spirit. They don't see it as an actual physiological issue. So they don't put the same energy into like research and treatment because they see it as something that is supposed to be between you and like a church or a religious community, as opposed to being between you and a medical professional. And that's starting to shift, but it's not shifting nearly enough.
Over here,
And-
it's a real stigma here.
Especially
for someone that's supposed to be tough.
The truth is, Helios, it's not great anywhere. Mental health.
Anyway, that's my point. Shannon can talk about
can you
it
not hear me,
for
Helios?
another 20 minutes.
Helios, do you not hear me?
Yeah.
Maybe he
Helios,
doesn't-
can you hear me?
It seems I'm breaking up.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Don't worry. We'll take the rest of the
internet
call
is
off
really
air
bad.
because it's getting weird. For a second I was like, the fuck is going on? Every time I try to talk, but apparently Helios couldn't hear me.
I think that he was having connection issues, or they. Sorry. Oh
They.
my gosh.
No worries.
This is the worst. I need to read. God. Sorry.
I hate reading. No, actually I love reading. The mental health is bad. Mental health services are bad pretty much everywhere. And even in the places that it almost seems like they shouldn't be, not because, America's better than other places, but because you have institutions of research actually happening, and you would hope that where this stuff is emerging, and a lot of that is right now happening in America. Some of the greatest mental health research institutions are here. There's some in Europe, and those are the places that are centrally focused on it. Because in a lot of other places that you wish would culturally care more about it and have huge populations, not only do they not look into it, but it would be detrimental to the existence of certain, we'll call them political states, to actually extend that to their citizens. And so you have a place like the U.S., like where my family, when they found out I was self-harming I think I was 15 years old, took me to a counselor at the church for two reasons. One, that's what they thought you're supposed to do. They thought that was genuinely the good way. Let's figure out the combination of I'm sure some combination of learning how to count to 10 when you're angry plus prayers will fix this and solve this. And two, because it's not just a matter of mental health. It's not just a matter of whether you want to call it skepticism because you suck at using words, but more conspiracies. It's also a matter of the othering that religion does to things which aren't overtly religious, the us versus them. So if this isn't a concept that comes from religion, it probably comes from the devil, and you need to fear it. And so if you get secular counseling, the number of Mormons I have known whose fear of secular therapy was that their kids would get taken away is fucking gross, because in almost all of the cases, they're right. Their kids would have been and should have been taken away. I should have been taken away from my parents. Definitely. In a real and just world, I don't talk very much about, I was actually writing a book about my upbringing, and I stopped writing it because I couldn't bring it, because I'm a better person than my parents are. And I couldn't bring myself to expose them to the amount of hatred they were going to receive after the book would have come out. There's something about me that can't do it while they're alive. Maybe that sounds petty that I don't, when they're dead, then I'm going to release it. I may or I may not, but having gone through how fucking insane parasocial relationships are and what people take it upon themselves to do to people they hate, even somebody who deserves a lot of consequences, I couldn't do that to. And yet, this is the problem, is it's not just trying to advocate for mental health. It's trying to advocate to people that they should want to be mentally healthy.
Right.
And a lot of people don't want to be mentally healthy, or they define mentally healthy as something they really feel based on their qualia. I'm sorry, Sven, I'm just teasing. But based on their I mean, Shannon, how many times have you heard a phrase along the lines of like, well, I used to get spanked and I turned out fine.
Oh my gosh.
And they didn't. They didn't.
And usually it's and it's also almost entirely to diminish somebody else's current experience as not being as bad or bad at all when they're saying, hey, you know, I have trauma surrounding this. They'll pipe in, not realizing that it's probably their trauma talking, saying, oh, look at me, I'm totally fine. And the same exact thing happened to me, which is both invalidating to the other person and a lack of acknowledgement that you are subject to abuse cycles.
Yeah.
That you might likely be continuing.
Yeah, we as humans are very opposed to abuse which we experience, and yet spend so much time justifying the abuse that we put on others. I mean, that's that whole spanking thing. That's that whole. And by the way, I've stopped trying to be so polite in the way I'm wording things anymore, because it's so often that politeness and trying then gets strawmanned. So just say it straight up. Fucking, if you're hitting your kid, you're abusing your kid. You're a child abuser. Doesn't mean you couldn't stop and become a good parent right now. But the science is in. The studies are in. It's just abuse. And it's abuse that you are doing selfishly, because it's not actually improving that child. It's not teaching that child what's right and wrong. It's teaching them what does and doesn't receive them hits.
It's using pain as a manner in which to augment behavior. It's teaching that pain is an adequate, acceptable, and effective way to get people to behave the way that you want them to, without even requiring the justification for why they should behave that way. Yeah. So it's bad on two levels, because you're not giving the child life skills that are required to understand the consequences. They're just avoiding consequences that they can't fully grapple with or understand because they've never been explained to them. Yeah.
Yeah. And I very much had the parents of, you don't, it was against the rules to ask why you should have to do something. Not always. Like, I'm not saying you weren't allowed to ask, like, hey, why is the sky blue? If you were given a command to ask why was against the ruls, and you would be punished for doing
insubordination.
So. Yeah. 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 A contradiction also. And by the way, like, it was, my mother could have said 2 + 2 = 7. And I could say, no, it equals 4. And I would have been in trouble for contradicting her. It is, even when they are correct, you do not contradict. Right. And it's like, holy fucking Christ. So you both don't want me to grow, and you'll do that at the cost of your own growth too. Awesome. Fucking, anyway. Yeah. I don't know. It's one of those things where it's funny how little I talk about really in depth what happened with my family and my growing up. But off air, it's my favorite thing to talk about, because I have so much to get off of my chest. It's just usually I have to get past people's initial gasps. It's not good, people. It's not good how it started. But anyway, let's go talk to, as if anybody thought I was well adjusted and seemed like I had a healthy upbringing. We're talking to Petter in Norway. Petter is a theist and believes that he has a argument for why God is real. Specifically Allah. Go ahead, Petter.
Yeah, thank you, Jimmy. We talked 2 or 3 weeks ago.
I remember.
Yes, okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. I did appreciate our conversation. I listened back. It's kind of weird listening to yourself for the first time, talking about the atheistic things to an atheist.
For the record, it's weird the 1,000th time too. Anytime I have to listen to my own voice, it's awful.
Never gets better.
Nope. Never.
Sorry, Petter.
But yeah, no, it was very interesting because we talked a lot about what kind of evidence, and both you and Matt were asking me a lot of good questions about where I got my faith from and things like that. And one of the things that you asked me to do was do more research on my beliefs and things like that.
And Petter, let me go ahead and offer a little bit of introductory summary for everybody who's just joining now. Petter lives in Norway and was previously a person without faith, seemingly because Norwegians aren't a largely religious population. And then in an attempt to debunk, because Petter sees I'm trying to think of the word I want to use, an unreasonable amount of contempt in Norway for Islam. And in exploring that contempt, came to the conclusion that Islam actually does make sense and seems true. And we discussed that with Petter and showed him why every piece of supporting evidence he had that it could be true does not meaningfully meet any smell test, and asked Petter to go and reconsider and call back with some arguments that might land a little bit better, might sound a little more reasonable. So, Petter, if you have those, unless you disagree with any of my summary, if you have any of those arguments, we'd love to hear them now.
That is a very good summary. Thank you for that, Jimmy.
Sure.
Yeah, so one of the things that I have looked into is the cosmological argument. Is that something that you are common with?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
yes.
And
yeah,
Petter, let's do this. Let's do this.
Yeah.
We cover the Kalam a lot. You could probably go find it on clips. In fact, I think we recently released one that might have even been called the Kalam Again or something like that. Kalamageddon. We get that argument a ton. So let's do this. We're going to, for anybody who's watching, and I'm going to get the exact phrasing right by pulling it up. We're going to tell you what the Kalam is I don't know what's just happened. The call dropped. I have internet. Let me see. I see you. It looks like you're moving again. I don't know what happened. We're back. Petter, call back in. Shannon's audio is not currently coming through yet.
That's because I was on mute. I was muting because I was clickety-clacking on the keyboard trying to figure out if it was just me frozen.
Yeah, something weird happened. I'm speed testing right now, and I've got internet. It's not me this time.
I'm almost always the problem.
No, but we lost Petter too. So something on my end happened.
Oh.
And yet
the Kalam is such an well, I mean, it's not interesting. It really, even if you accept every premise and say it's sound and valid, then at best it just gets you to cause, and then you have to smuggle everything else.
Ready to connect. Click connect to show now.
The call system and get Petter back in here.
Cool.
Yeah, it was very strange. Very strange. Sorry, everybody. I had just debunked the Kalam while none of you could hear it completely. William Lane Craig was ready to concede.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was.
Isn't that always the way?
It was
right when you're about to get your Nobel Prize.
Yeah.
The internet dies.
No one would give you a Nobel for debunking the Kalam. It's too easy. Petter, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Shannon, do you hear Petter?
I do.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't know where we left off because I was ranting. So I'm going to just start over because for the sake of clipping. But what I was saying was, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to define the Kalam. Then we're going to accept that the Kalam is true, even though it isn't. And then we're going to let's say that the Kalam is true. How do you get from the Kalam to Islam? Because I would rather work back from Islam than work forward from the universe exists. Because the gaps that's an insane gap that every theist who goes to the Kalam just doesn't apparently care about that gap. And yet God of the gaps is their whole fucking thing. Anyway, Petter, you are there still, Petter, right?
Yes.
This is the Kalam. Everything that begins to exist has a cause. That's premise one. By the way, that is an unverified premise. What the fuck is my phone doing now? My phone just started playing Miley Cyrus on Spotify. Something fucking insane is happening on my internet on my end. It was playing I have never once pulled up the song The Climb by Miley Cyrus on Spotify, and it just started playing that. Okay, anyway, everything that begins to exist has a cause. That is an undemonstrated premise. And two, even if you say everything that began to exist has a cause, you can only say that that is a quality of our universe. It doesn't have to be a quality of the universe itself. So the universe, once it begins to exist, maybe everything then. However, the second premise is the universe began to exist. That is also undemonstrated. The concept of began is convoluted in general because it is an establishment of time. Time seems to have a starting point, again, for our universe, because the universe is an expression of time and matter. So the universe began to exist is also not an actual, and there are eternal, that the universe is in essence eternal models out there that are considered very viable hypotheses. However, the Big Bang would still be a thing that happened in this concept. And so premise one, everything that began to exist has a cause. Premise two, the universe began to exist. And then premise three, therefore the universe has a cause. Now, William Lane Craig, the I think he's a Catholic, the Christian,
I think he is a Christian.
Whatever he is. It's all nonsense. Same nonsense.
Flavor of Christian.
Sure. The only type of Christian I remember he is that he once says he's not a Calvinist, but I don't pay that much attention to his life. So that's all I know. Anyway, he extends it with, if the universe has a cause, then an uncaused personal creator of the universe exists, who without the universe is beginninglessness, changelessness, immaterial time, who is beginningless, changeless, immaterial, timeless, spaceless, and enormously powerful. Therefore, an uncaused personal creator of the universe exists, who sans the universe is beginningless, changeless, immaterial, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so already explained why that premise hasn't been demonstrated and you shouldn't accept it. The Kalam is not difficult to debunk, and it is only interesting to people who weaponize their ignorance. So let's pretend none of that's true and that it actually is correct. We can either go with the 3 premise version or the 5 premise version. You believe that Allah, the God of Islam, exists and is the God of the universe, whereas the Kalam can only get you to deism at best. So go ahead and close the gap. We're going to say the Kalam is true. Some kind of God out there exists. Why is it Allah?
Yeah, so what I did when I got to the argument where I kind of like stopped at the deism, I kind of had to look at the gods that was presented to me. Do
Why?
you understand what I mean?
So you have to choose between the gods you're aware of, is what you said, right?
Presented, yeah. I would
the
say so,
Kalam
yeah.
presents at best a deistic case, which means every conceivable kind of God could be the result of the Kalam. There is no there is no limiter, there is no, all they need to be is beginningless, changeless, immaterial, timeless, spaceless, and enormously powerful. Why would, if a God exists, why would it be necessary for that God to be a God you would be aware of?
Yeah, that is a very good question. And that's one of the things that I was thinking a lot about when I was going through this. Because one of the things that I was pondering...
Wait, Petter. Yeah. No. Answer the question. You said you can't just say, I thought about that a lot. You thought about that a lot and then came to the conclusion that this God who, on the basis of the Kalam you say you believe in, who has an infinite number of definitions, is one of the few you've ever heard of. Why did you come to that conclusion?
Because I have not heard of a few. I have heard of very many.
No, sir. Petter, in the scheme of how many gods could exist after the Kalam is demonstrated to be true, again, it isn't, but we're pretending it is, the number is infinity. So there is no number of gods you could have heard of in your entire life that we couldn't summarize as a few. A very small percentage of them.
Can you explain to me why it's infinite?
If you believe on the basis of the Kalam, the only characteristics, even if you take William Lane Craig's 5 premise 1, the only basic characteristics of a God that you have are beginningless, changeless, immaterial, timeless, spaceless, and enormously powerful. So Allah is one of those gods. Right? The God of Christianity is one of those gods. Many of the Hindu gods are those gods. There are pagan gods you could possibly fit into there, though that one's harder. And then there are an infinite number of other gods you could just make up that are still possible under the Kalam. So you have gone with the God who exists is one of the ones I've heard people articulate, even though the God you exist could be a super spider who purposefully hides from humanity and actually wants you to believe that they don't exist. And there's no better reason, unless you tell me what it is, there is no better reason to believe in Allah than the super spider who wants you to believe they don't exist. And by the way, I would fucking love a super spider god, just for the record. I love spiders. I've been catching spiders all weekend. The storms keep bringing them out. We have these heat bursts, and I've caught the biggest grass spider. It's like the size of the palm of my hand this week. Anyway, there is no better reason to believe in the super spider god than Allah, unless there is. And my question to you is, what is the better reason to believe in that God versus anything I can just make up off the top of my head?
Again, this is why I call you, because you asked me all the good questions.
I know. Now answer it.
My honest answer is that I don't think I have an answer to that.
Okay, good. Petter, if you don't have an answer to that, not even just for me, but for you, is the following statement true or false? Because there is no better reason to believe in any God over another, it is better to reserve belief on a God's existence at all.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about last time we spoke, yes. And I have been thinking about that a lot.
Okay, but answer the question. You keep answering with I've been thinking about it.
I agree with you. I just have to think.
Okay, so Petter, you said you agree with me. So the following statement is true. I agree with you. Therefore, I believe in Allah equal to how much I believe in the hidden spider god.
The hidden spider, yes.
Good. Okay, good. So good. So we're going to drop all of Islam, right? Because you don't have a good reason to follow it. Are you an atheist now? Did we do it?
That I don't know. Like I did last time.
Yeah.
I called, and I'll see that I don't have a good argument.
Okay, cool. Okay, so is it now you want to go see if you can find a good argument again? Or is it now that you are at the point of, I'm going to stay in the position of reserved belief until I see a good reason, not until I hear a good argument I think I might be able to stump some fucking idiot who does a show on Sundays on YouTube? I was referring to you, Shannon. No, I'm just kidding. It was me.
I don't do a show on Sundays on YouTube, bud.
Where are you, Shannon?
Not regularly.
I know. I was
not
kidding.
regular. Any given Sunday. This is an anomaly.
That I would ever call Shannon an idiot when I exist on the internet in true form would be fucking
I would only
hilarious.
do it when you're out of my reach.
Can I ask 2 or 3 questions?
Sure.
Okay. So I guess I totally agree with you. It is plausible as the super spider that you just made up is as plausible as Allah.
Or it might not be. By the way, Petter, I wasn't saying it was. I was saying I don't see it. And I was asking if it's not, tell me, because I'd love a reason to believe a God is even more likely than another God, as much as I'd love any other thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So my question is this, and this comes from a very honest point of view. What do I do now then? If I give up that experience that I had, what am I supposed to do?
Live.
Yeah. Just live your life.
Petter, do you
what
know
do you think
how?
we do?
Yeah, do you know how religious the 2 people you're talking to used to be?
Oh my gosh.
Way more religious than you.
Religious.
Yeah. Like
competitively.
Yeah. It was my whole identity. Not well, that masturbating, but it was a big part of my identity. Huge.
One of them still is.
Yeah, one of them's still there. One of them's still a part. But it was Petter, I once, twice, in 2 different occasions, was given the opportunity to do, basically in high school, you have to prove you can put together a research paper. And once for a history class and another time for an English class, took both of those opportunities to try and convert my entire class by making the topics Mormon-centric. I literally told a group of high schoolers the miracle of the seagulls, or the miracle of the gulls, it's called. In Mormonism, that's the miracle where there was, have you seen, Shannon, maybe you have, I doubt you have, Petter, being in Norway. Have you seen that right now in America, in parts of America, there are these katydids that are called Mormon crickets that are absolutely infesting, like people are coming home and there's millions of them covering their lawns and and these things are called Mormon crickets because they're a part of Mormon canon of miracles. And that was that the early saints, the pioneers who came over to Utah, couldn't grow any crops because these katydids were wrecking havoc. And the miracle was one day a bunch of gulls showed up and ate them. And that's a miracle. And I told that, I was so Mormon, I used that for the subject of a research paper, thinking I was going to convert my entire public school history and English class at a separate time in a different year. Like, Petter, the answer when you realize it's bullshit is to live in the things you know aren't bullshit.
It's so much better.
I do things...
I think one of the reasons why I think it's hard for me is to give away that experience. I think that's kind of hard. And
of course, give away the experience. You just recontextualize it.
Petter, you can't lose it. You couldn't if you wanted to without a brain injury. You can't just lose the experience, but you can live in the... Petter, I didn't know that I hadn't experienced demons and ghosts and stuff well into my atheism. Before I didn't learn about sleep paralysis until like 5 years into being atheist, what sleep paralysis was. So in that 5-year period, I had these experiences that are some of the most terrifying experiences I can even conceive of. Sometimes I go to sleep scared I will have them still because they're terrifying. So I had this 5-year period where I just understood that I didn't understand, but it didn't make the experience go away. It didn't mean that I didn't still fear that I was going to wake up unable to move with a man standing over my bed tying a noose, which was one of the popular ones that I would have. Like that, because I didn't know what sleep paralysis was. So I lived for 5 years in this. I just don't know what this is. Some things will never be answered. Some experiences that you had, for me, of things that I thought were hauntings or whatever else, I will never know the exact answer for it. But I do know a lot of possible answers. I do know a lot of ways other people have fooled themselves. I know ways that people have maliciously fooled other people. And I don't leave out that exception because I had brothers who were obsessed with ghost hunting, that some of my experiences as a child where I thought were hauntings were almost definitely my brothers. But there are going to be lots of things you'll never have an answer for. There's nothing wrong with living in those I don't knows. In fact, the problem is people who are religious aren't living in the I don't knows. They're living in the I know wrong. I know the incorrect thing, and I'd rather live in what is incorrect than with an I don't know, because I don't know is uncomfortable. And it's something you have to get the fuck over. I don't know is fine. Go live your life. Go kiss somebody who wants to kiss you. It's awesome. You won't give a fuck whether or not Allah exists when you're kissing somebody. No one does, even Muslims. Kissing's hot. I'm sorry. It's been a long time. I have not experienced human touch in a while. I'm going to keep saying weird stuff like that. I haven't even had a hug in like 6 months.
Oh, I should fly to Texas and give you a hug.
Nah, it'd be weird. It'd just be weird. I probably need to hire somebody who signs an NDA to hug me.
It would be weird if I
need to hire somebody.
I'm not going to derail the rest of this call. I actually have to go in like 2 minutes
that's
anyways.
True. I was just saying, I probably have to hire someone to hug me with an NDA because it's been so long. The next person who hugs me, I'm probably going to moan. Anyway, Shannon has to go soon. So Shannon and Petter, why don't you two talk for the remaining 4 minutes that Shannon has, and then we'll I'll keep taking calls.
I thank you for taking my call again, and you've given me a lot to think about again.
I think I'll leave Petter to go and think, because I think Petter's having an emotional experience right now that it might be a good idea for him to grapple with. And I will say thank you for the call. It was wonderful to listen to you. You were a great interlocutor, and it was your and Jimmy's conversation was great. And have a good rest of your day.
Oh, I think Petter hung up already.
He did. Yes, he's had enough.
That's all
over
right.
it.
Petter, we are rooting for you. That was awesome.
100%. Yes, you have support here. Call us back for sure, anytime.
Yeah.
And I am so sorry. I'm apologizing to the audience. I have to go play a soccer game. I actually have my soccer gear on already. I know you can't see it. So I have to run to the soccer field. Jimmy, thank you for having me. I'm so sorry that I'm leaving you early. And nobody be nice to Jimmy while I'm gone. Go fuck yourself, Jimmy. Bye.
That was never going to be a problem. See ya. All right. I will keep taking calls for a while until I'm not interested. But other than the call that is currently queuing, I am going to let me let the mod know. Screener, Zoe. Thank you, Zoe, by the way, for screening today. Please only theists or argumentative callers hear out. No one has still called to defend the results of the poll, but hundreds of you voted that scientists should be prepared for specifically public debate. And I want to have that conversation with somebody. I want somebody to come at me with, because I could be wrong, by the way. I want somebody to come at me with, yes, of course they must because this. And I want to say no, because this. And they say, no, Jimmy, you're wrong because this. I actually want that. I do want that. So that conversation would be great to have. But in the meantime, I am sorry for anybody who's calling who wanted the amazing duo, because now you're just stuck with me. But I'm getting the caller tag ready. Usually I use while Shannon or my guests are talking to do the production stuff. But here we go. We're going to talk to Dwayne in Canada. And Dwayne, for the sake of today, you called in and I guess you used the identifier spiritual. I've put theist on because we generally just do the two categories. But if you tell me that you really would prefer not to have theist, I'll take it off.
No, that's all right. Cool. Different language, different rules. So,
sure.
Knock stuff out. So it makes it easier for you guys to understand. That's cool. I'm with it.
Yeah.
All right.
So Dwayne, go ahead. And, give us your question.
Well, actually, you know what? Since you were so intent on the poll question,
sure,
we can go with that because I can ask my other one at any other time.
Let's do both. Let's do both because I actually really like the question you were calling in, and I've been thinking about it up to now. So, what? Go ahead with your question, present it to the audience, and we'll go from there.
All right. If religion were to disappear tomorrow, does anyone believe things would get better?
Yes,
actually, let me rephrase. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No.
I forgot to mention. Just I add on to the last part. Would it get better, worse, or stay the same?
So
I should have put that part.
Nothing should dramatically change overnight. Sure. And I get the spirit of your question, so I'll address the spirit of your question. Sure. The world, I do believe, would be better without religion. As far as something abruptly happening or something, or even over a short period of time, I'll say this. The non-religious world right now does not do a good job of covering the needs of non-religious people, especially those coming out of religion. Because people who are leaving religion aren't just leaving religion, they're leaving community, they're leaving ritual. And when I say ritual, I'm not trying to mean in a spiritual sense, I'm more meaning in a routine.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, they're leaving routine, they're leaving certain levels of certainty where that certainty covered comfort. They're leaving comforting levels of denial when it comes to death and stuff. And so the world right now hasn't yet met that moment, and we don't have everybody needing those resources yet. But what religion is giving you isn't better than the world without it. Is sort of the greater point. So in the short term, I'm trying to, I don't know if Dwayne, how familiar you are with the line. I'm the executive producer here. I started it, and beyond I'm actually trying to focus on a future where I'm less focused on hosting shows. I like bringing this up because some people are super excited about this future and some people hate it. I do not plan to host for several more years. I'm hoping in another year or two, you stop seeing me on shows as much because I'm wanting to focus more on opening community centers and these things that are going to be replace the resources and that sense of loss for religious people. But at best, unless something crazy happens and I end up with a windfall of billions of dollars, I might be able to pull that off in a few cities before I die. And that's just not going to be enough. So there has to be more people trying to do things like that. And there's lots of reasons why I might not even succeed at the few cities. So that would be the answer to that. Then you wanted to take on the, unless, do you have any thoughts or comments or follow-up questions before we?
Oh, I was just going to say, I mean, who's going to replace David Letterman if you go offline?
David Letterman. The person
or whoever the big new
guy,
talk show guy is.
Well, Colbert already replaced Letterman.
You got that charisma, man. I mean,
thanks.
I mean, it doesn't even have to be like about the whole atheist thing, but to say you're going to deny people your awesome presence. I'm not being sarcastic, by the way. Of like your conversation, all that. I don't know. I
wouldn't say I'm going to deny people that. I think I'm going to stop making it a point of mass consumption by lots of. I don't. So the truth is, I don't enjoy being a public figure. And so it'll be. It's there's specific things about that. There are things I love about it, and there are reasons why I'm doing it anyway. But the moment I think everything could succeed that we're working on without me needing to be a face of it, I will stop being the face of it because I so thoroughly am unhappy. But anyway, now that I've brought the whole world down with that little revelation, let's move to the next one. Are you there, Dwayne? Did everything just freeze again? No? I just don't hear Dwayne. Dwayne, do you hear? Does anybody? Am I still on? Are we frozen again? Hello? Okay, y'all are saying I'm here. So I think I just lost Dwayne. Dwayne, if you want to try to reconnect, I'll bring you right back in because I definitely did want to engage with somebody on this topic of the poll. Dwayne, can you hear me? Well, shit. Let's see if Dwayne calls right back. Yeah, I freaked out. Sorry, everyone. I freaked out that everything had frozen again. They are developing new fiber optic connections in my town. It hasn't come to my neighborhood yet, but it's in the surrounding area, and they're already sending me flyers like it has. So I think the infrastructure is there. They're just waiting to connect. But it looks like things will improve. Okay, wait. We got Dwayne back. Dwayne, how you doing?
Sorry about that. My phone does that, where the screensaver and it goes up to like you have 10 minutes before it shuts off. Well, I forgot about that and it shut off. So sorry about that.
No worries.
Didn't mean to mess you guys up or anything.
You're good.
With let's see if my Alzheimer's is not working today.
Okay.
Oh, right. The culture issue, right? Because, honestly, like religion, like I don't know how much you guys know about native people, culture, history, or anything like that.
Do you mean
Lakota,
like indigenous Americans?
Those guys. Sure. Yeah.
And I know Canada's past with them is sort of becoming recent revelations to people who weren't keeping track of it. Not great. I assume that's what you're mentioning.
Oh yeah. See, because there's a guy in your chat, Michael Reich. I don't know if it's appropriate to say his name, but he brought up a really good point about he went down to Fort Benning and being taught that basically wars are resource controls, which is more or less what it is, right? Because America, Canada, Mexico, pretty much every single country in the Western Hemisphere has done the exact same things, and they didn't need religion to do it. All right. I mean, like when I was a kid, it was actually illegal for my family and most of my people to either speak a language, attend like any kind of spiritual events that wasn't a Christian church, right? And it was still like way up until '96 is when the last official residential school finished here, right? And they could at any time, it didn't have to be church guy or church woman, a police officer or a government official. You go to anybody's home on any reserve, anywhere, point at those kids, and it didn't matter if they were being abused or all the other stuff. Go. You got to send you to the schools. I know some people, and quite a few people in my own family that went through that. I was lucky enough that they only had to throw me on the reserve school, which is the same thing as a residential school, only they stuck it on a reserve. So, so that's where I get the whole, and I do get the idea of like religious thought, like the concept of religion, the organization, the background behind it, extremely destructive.
Sure.
Anybody who's ever paid attention to history knows that. I like George Carlin. Did you know God is the leading cause for death?
Yeah. So I'll just put in to put a bow on this topic and make it short.
Yeah.
I think it's just simplest to say I think the world would be way better if it was a mostly secular humanist world as opposed to the current world. Atheism by itself would not accomplish much. But then you were ready to engage the other topic too, correct?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I rambled off. I apologize.
No, you're good.
Now, okay. In English, what was the question? It was, should scientists have to debate publicly in order to be taken seriously?
Yes. Did you vote yes or no, or are you just trying to devil's advocate?
I went with yes, because, and there's some nuance behind that, right? I'm presuming, because we all know what happens when you assume, right? I'm presuming terrible that joke, you're talking about.
Yeah.
Hey, take it where you get it. But I'm presuming that you're talking about a scientist defending like the knowledge base of science itself. No. Or are you talking about the scientist personally?
It was in reference to a specific event. And by the way, everybody, welcome Eric from Skeptics and Scoundrels, who's now suddenly appearing. It was the specific example has to do with this doctor and scientist who is responsible for the COVID vaccine being challenged to a debate on Joe Rogan's podcast against an anti-vaxxer named Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is a Kennedy. And basically, there is the presentation. In fact, Elon Musk is one of the people who elevated this, saying that the reason he doesn't want to do that debate is that he knows he's wrong, implying that a scientist who is not wanting to do a debate, by the way, the guy hasn't actually said he's not going to do it yet, but even if he did, the implication being that a scientist must be able to engage in the skill of debating to have their science validated. And that is the specific example. So with that specific example in mind, are you still on the side of the yes, that debate should be happening?
For that specific point, no.
Okay. So let's
because
just, on the off chance somebody is in the live chat or watching, we'll hold off. I don't care for devil's advocate debates anyway. I think they're stupid and pointless. So I'm just going to put the challenge out again. If somebody would like to call and defend that it actually should be the case that a scientist who develops a vaccine or some technology or whatever, they should be going and debating publicly in forums such as these, like podcasts or whatever. It wouldn't have had to been Joe Rogan, just that you should have biologists debating creationists, that a scientist, if they want to be taken seriously, should be taking on the opposing, even extreme opposing positions in the form of public debate specifically. I want to hear from that person who thinks that's a good idea, and for the person to defend that position.
Yeah. See, this is situational. Like, you could say the same thing about the father and son who discovered the crater that killed off the dinosaurs, right? Now, they had some great evidence, tons of it. They backed it up. But, first of all, they were never actually taken seriously because it went against, established dogma, right? And then when finally they did a kind of their own debate and presented the evidence, and it was proven to be true, and then everything changed. See, that's situational.
Dwayne,
right?
Dwayne, how was it proven to be true? Was it proven on a podcast in a debate, or was it proven by science and peer review?
Yeah, that's basically what debate is. Like,
no,
see, this is where
it totally diverges. We're talking about debates in the formal sense.
Yeah,
not
like standing up in front of two people and deciding who's right, who's wrong. It's
even that's
honestly.
I want to take issue with descriptively, but let's wait until. Like I said, we'll wait until somebody comes on. Wouldn't it be so funny if I don't let Eric talk at all? I just let him show up and I do the rest of the show and he just keeps getting talked over. Anyway, no. We'll wait till somebody wants to call in and defend that this doctor, I would love specifically, the doctor should debate RFK Jr. on Joe Rogan. Call. I know some of you are watching because you hate me from our tweet exchanges. Call. Let's do it. Be the not coward you're claiming that the doctor is being. Anyway, go ahead, Dwayne.
I would say, just on a complete entertainment point of watching that RFK get smashed, I think just on that.
RFK getting smashed does not necessarily happen. A person being wrong does not mean they lose the debate. This is fundamentally what everyone is so fucking wrong about on this issue. Debate is not a measure of correctness. It is a measure of debate proficiency. Period. That's it. Donald Trump is perceived to have won debates. That is proof debates are not a measure of correctness.
That's true. Yep. All right. Guess my jokes. I'll work on my joke.
Okay, it's all good.
But miigwech for listening to me ramble on. I appreciate it.
Sure.
What's the? Is it go fuck yourself, Jimmy, or
that'll work?
The proper thing, because I don't want to actually be serious about trying to offend. You know what I mean? Don't want to be disrespectful. So whatever the appropriate thing to say is for you, man, give her.
All right, thanks, Dwayne.
Thank you. All right, bye.
Eric, how are you? Anyway, so look out tonight. I just thought that'd be funny. Go ahead. How are you, man?
Just log on to get kicked. Not just kick me off the stream. Just that would be the nice exclamation point to the end of that joke. Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
And the worst part is, had I done that, it freeze frames you. And it never, you have to purposefully try to get it a freeze frame that's flattering. It's hard to do. That's why usually when people are leaving live on air, I usually tell them strike a pose as you hit close, because it's going to be, that rhymed and I didn't mean it to. I'm fine. I really want somebody, because this is one of my most controversial tweets ever. I've got hundreds of people replying to it. I've got, but I have 1,500 likes or some shit like that. Constant replies of people not fundamentally understanding what I'm saying. I've seen people in the live chat not fundamentally understanding what I'm saying. I
haven't seen it. Let me go pull it up.
Yeah. So basically, Joe Rogan. Here, I can send you the link to.
Yeah.
Where it all began. The concept is whether or not scientists should have to be subjected to public debates to accept that. And it's so funny because it's a standard that is not applied anywhere else. People are relying on science every fucking day, not just in medicine, but literally nobody's asking Zuckerberg to come and do a fucking public debate on Instagram and whether it's healthy for you. By the way, it's not. And if we as a society cared about children, we would delete it. But I have it. I'm a hypocrite. I'm not. Look, fucking. But that is true. We fucking the number one export of Instagram is fucking eating disorders. We're fucking idiots for the way society is embracing social media. We are so fucking full of shit as people pretending we give a fuck about. It's so selfish and so disgusting. And the things that we're doing for our serotonin rushes every day, I at least have the decency to be disgusted by myself. Some of y'all need to be a little more disgusted with who you are.
To know that,
that I'm fucking trash. A lot of you need to pick up that you're trash and at least address it, embrace it.
Yeah. My off the cuff 2 cents about that would just be, what if you have somebody who's 100% right, who's just a piss poor debater?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But also, why are we pretending that debate is a high standard of truth establishment? It isn't at all.
I think it's in the US, everything has to be distilled down to its entertainment value.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, what do you want to hear a dry scientist talk about his dissertation or his doctorate research, or do you want to see him throw it down with some creationist in a debate where you got commentary and all that? Yeah, it's kind of just the culture we're in. We if we don't see entertainment in it, we tend to diminish its value in our eyes. And that's
the funny thing. People keep bringing this up and this standard, and I bring up, the high standard is called peer review. And they go, oh, but what about this? Look at this flawed thing that came from peer review. And you know what? Yeah. Because humans are a part of it, that's true. It is a flawed system. Thousands of times better than public debate is. Still, I don't disagree that peer review is a system that has flaws within it. Again, until we get rid of the human factor, it always will. And it is still, it's kind of like democracy. Democracy is a terrible system. The only thing worse is everything else.
Yep.
Peer review isn't a terrible system, and it actually does. Planes fucking fly. You're welcome. Peer review. Signed. It's not a terrible system, but it's not a perfect system. And so these people who think that public debate is somehow, again, this is coming from a motherfucking public debater. And I'm not saying debate is bad or that debate has no role in society. But you will see as we launch these debate shows, we're going to do things pretty different than a lot of debate shows do, because I'm going to try and eliminate some of the worst, most stupid parts of debate. And then there's this fucking thing. I'm glad you're here so I can just bounce this off, since nobody was brave enough to actually defend their yes vote to call in. And I'm mad at every single one of you who voted yes and didn't call, because you should be ready it's really funny because everyone who didn't call proved my point. You're not ready to defend it because and this is fine, and this isn't me trying to brag, you can't beat me in a debate. And the reason you can't beat me in a debate isn't because I'm right. It's because I'm good at debating. Also, I'm right, but I'm good at debating because I practice all the fucking time. And so every single person where it's like, scientists, if you want us to take your position seriously, you should be ready to publicly defend it. And none of you publicly defended that position. Not one of you publicly defended that position. It's so fucking ironic. It's so fucking stupid. Anyway, somebody call in and tell me why God
contrarians.
exists.
Maybe they're doing this to get a rise out of you, and that's exactly what you're giving them right now.
Or they just didn't understand the thing. Planes fly because magic, Jimmy. Prove me wrong. I don't know that I can prove you wrong, because every time I drive near the Austin airport, which is anytime I'm in Austin, I'm usually near the airport. There's something about a really large passenger jet taking off where it's like, I fundamentally know, I know the basics of why this works. I am familiar with even some of the engineering theory, as well as the physics behind it. I fundamentally understand why that plane is in the air. It does look like magic. It does look like, especially when you are close, very close to something that big flying, it does not look like it has any business being in the air. It's kind of almost terrifying.
Even like bush planes in Alaska, like their minimum speed is super low. Like if you watch one of those planes going just the slowest it possibly can to stay airborne, it almost looks like it's floating. And it's like there's so much going on. There's so much physics and science and research and peer review and no magic. But to anybody who isn't aware of all those things, it will look like magic.
Yep.
You know, any technology sufficiently advanced to the ignorant appears like magic. And it's, I can see how people want to jump to that. And just people don't understand the generations of work that have gone into just the simplest things that we take for granted every day. Just you and me talking right now, we're sending electrons over copper wire at the speed of light to each other, and we can talk to each other, even though we're over 1,000 miles apart. It's insane the amount of work, commitment, and scientific rigor and process has gone into making just this possible. And then people will just dismiss it because Genesis says Adam and Eve, we're the first humans, and that's why I can dismiss genetics. Or Genesis says there was Noah's flood, and that's why I can dismiss geology. It's absurd.
Yes,
it's people who don't really understand what's going on behind
and
the
much
scenes.
of anything else often.
Yeah, and I think public debate's a good way to popularize a topic, but it is definitely not a good metric to determine a good measure to determine who's right or wrong on it. Because you can have somebody who's absolutely correct and a piss poor debater. You can have somebody who's absolutely wrong and will pull every dirty trick in the book, from Gish Gallops to shifting language to shifting terminology.
By the way, if you're not a trained debater, on the correct side of an issue, that's probably also how you will debate. A scientist who is not trained in debate is going to Gish Gallop, is going to equivocate, is going to make piss poor metaphors, is going to fundamentally not understand things like not solipsism, Socratic questioning, is going to, people who are right that don't know how to debate suck at debating, because it's not about being fucking right. It really isn't. I am better at debating on behalf of scientific concepts than probably 9% of scientists are, because I'm not a scientist.
Performance and entertainment.
Yeah. And you can't say I'm not entertaining. And even as a method of scientific communication, I'm not saying that debate doesn't have a place. I'm saying the expectation that the person who fucking discovers the COVID vaccine, that they should also be able to do that. Not just do that, by the way. Do that in the fucking lion's den. Do that in a place. Have you ever been right in a room full of wrong people before? Most atheists have been in this experience. You are not perceived as correct if everybody there is nodding with stupid points. We still live in a world, it wasn't that long ago. I've heard the argument why did we come from monkeys? How do we come from monkeys if there are still monkeys within the last few months? And in a room full of idiots who don't understand evolution, or not even idiots, just ignorant assholes who refuse to understand evolution, they nod along, go, yeah, what about that point? And when you try to explain the point, the person then goes, oh, well, all these advanced concepts and these things that you can't apparently just understand on the surface, even though that one should be surface level understanding. The fact that I can't conceive of what you just said, and it's still simpler to me to think this in terms of why don't we see monkeys giving birth to humans? And these fucking idiots are sitting and they're nodding because they are weaponizing their ignorance. Them not understanding is their weapon, and it's fucking nuts.
Yeah, and it's the whole approach of idealism over facts. Like, they have their conclusion. Their conclusion is their religion is true or their political ideology is true, and facts must fit that. Any facts that don't fit that can be dismissed, or it can be strawmanned, or it can be whatever, just dismissed whatever way possible, and you latch onto the stuff that does support your position. I think just recently, I think I saw it on Facebook. The progress of man diagram, which is a really absurd diagram of the monkey, phasing into a human. They think that's terrible Facebook meme. It's like we have this one. Yeah, we have the monkey, we have the man, but we don't have anything in the middle. Explain that, atheist. No, that's first of all, this diagram is terrible to begin with, but it's like you don't understand just the basics of evolution. The basics. We literally don't have that
monkey, by the way.
Yeah, and it's
frustrating.
Can you imagine? Imagine if debate was some type of valid form of justifying your work, and then
it would look like peer review. That's what it would look like. If a valid form of debate would look like peer review.
But imagine future research papers referencing debates as a support in one of their points. Like, imagine how fast science would just completely unravel because we would go down so many false paths.
Imagine citing Ken Ham in a fucking medical paper. Trudy's been waiting for an hour, so let's get Trudy on about the spirit and the soul. Trudy, you are on the line with Jimmy and Eric. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you, and thank you very much for providing this platform for us to have these discussions.
You're welcome.
I'm really confused about the idea of a spirit.
Okay.
I feel like my spirit, I feel like, is the energy, the electricity, whatever, that animates me. I'm not educated, and I'm not a good debater except for with stupid Christians. So I hope you understand me.
So what you're describing is that there is a natural thing which exists and that you want to call that your soul. The word soul generally is not defined as the electricity which animates your body, because that's a literal physical thing. Electricity is a real physical thing. It's not conscious. It can be directed. And so things like that in the presence of electricity, can make things appear alive. But in the same way that a lightning bolt isn't alive, you don't have, or like a lightning bolt isn't a soul. So the electricity in your body also isn't a soul. It's electricity in your body. This sort of equivocation thing that people do where they go, I want to believe in a God, so I'm just going to change the definition of God, or in a soul.
I definitely do not want to believe in God.
No, I know. I'm giving you the example. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
When people go, okay, but I believe in God because I believe God is all of the love that exists in the universe. If you put it into a container, that's God. And you just go, you just fucking made that up. That's not that. Okay, fine. That's God. You believe in a God that is not, can't qualify as theism. You've just, you may as well have called it a fart because it's as meaningfully a fart as it is a God. And in this scenario, the electricity which animates you, you may as well, if you can call it a soul, you may as well call it a fart.
I was going to ask Trudy.
I wouldn't call it a soul. A spirit. My spirit of who I am. What makes me me.
Wait, so
Trudy, do you think that the spirit persists after death?
No, I think that your spirit leaves your body. And I've heard there's an infinite, a finite amount of energy.
Hold on, I'm a little confused by your answer there. The spirit or soul, the energy that animates you, do you think it persists after death? Does it exist continuously after your... No, so it's just gone, poof? Like
no, the energy does.
That's it?
I think the energy that was in me does continue to exist.
Okay.
Because I've been told, like I said, I'm not educated. I've been told that there's a finite amount of energy, and so energy doesn't die.
But nothing of you goes with it. Basically, it's just the raw energy that is your atoms, the electricity in your brain, the heat you put off. That will exist continuously, but nothing of you goes with it. Basically, right?
Right.
Okay. So it sounds like we're on the same page with the energy thing. We're just assigning it different labels. Spirit and soul kind of has some like baggage with it that you may be adopting that you don't have to.
I don't think it does.
You can just call it energy.
I disagree, Eric. I think Well, I don't think it has baggage. I think the baggage is redefining it. Spirit and soul mean what they mean. I think the definitions are clear that these are ethereal, supernatural concepts, that our consciousness is attached to something besides our physical brain and body. Trudy, just a moment ago, you said, okay, you kind of moved on from your electricity definition and said, I sort of think it's more like, it's what I am. It's the essence of who I am, what it's like to be me. Thank goodness you didn't say qualia. I'd have slapped you through the phone. Such a stupid discussion people like to bring up. But anyway, what it is. And so that was the next definition. And so, Trudy, is that if that's still where you are, that it's it's the essence of who you are. What is the difference in your definitions between a soul and a personality?
Good question.
Yeah, because there's not a difference. It's just another one of those things where it's like we're so attached to these concepts This concept of energy, that which animates me. That sounds amazing.
Well,
that should be a soul. Oh, wait, it's electricity and neurons and all that sort of stuff. Oh, shit. All right. Well, if we go on to this, it's again, I get it. I understand our attachment. We have to be selfish in this way. We have to feel an incredible sense of reason to be alive, even if we don't have a reason. We have to, we are emotional animals, but we are just animals. And so this concept of this thing that I feel such an essence of, that feels so significant to me, because truly, what is more significant to anyone than their own sense of existing? I can't even think of how you possibly could have something more significant than that. So you want to put some grand concept to it. But it also, by the way, there might be a soul. I'm not saying there isn't. I'm just saying I've yet to hear a definition that isn't just another word. And in this case, it's personality.
Do you consider personality and character to be the same thing?
I would probably use them in different sentences, but they do have a lot of overlap.
All right. I just wanted to hear you guys take on it.
Yeah, effectively enough. By the way, to the mods in chat, you don't have to, people, oh, I see. They started insulting somebody else in the chat. If somebody insults me in chat, I don't give a fuck. First of all, Justin Calkins is right. I am annoying.
Fuck.
But anyway, yeah, Trudy, so when I speak of a person's character versus a person's personality, they are fundamentally and potentially are completely the same. It's just more of what type of sentence I would use. So if I was describing like this person tends to overreact to this topic, that's usually something, and then I might say like, but that's their personality. However, if I don't know. They're just sentences in which I would describe that's that person's personality versus that person's character. But there's no meaningful
character
difference.
or characteristics. Or characteristics. But to me, a personality is how someone outwardly expresses themselves. Whereas characteristics is how character. Okay. Yeah. I must have misheard.
What, Trudy, did you say character or characteristics?
Character.
Yeah.
Okay, character. Yeah, a personality would be how somebody outwardly expresses themselves to me. And then a character kind of has more of a moral tint to it. Like, what is the character of this person?
Character has more qualities than that. Like, you could say my...
Character is like a subset of personality.
It might even be bigger. You could say part of my character is being tall.
That's like an attribute or a characteristic.
Yeah, it sort of is. But if you're describing a person, tell me about this person's character. They're a tall, happy, blah 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 blah. You can literally use anything. If you're describing a character, I don't know.
Is this going to be another Obliviate versus Decimate discussion?
I'm also thinking about in theater terms, if you're describing a character, but then you're just describing a person. I don't know. Yeah, these words have, but there's not a meaningful enough difference to say that there's something outside of personality or character with the definitions you were describing, this thing that describes a person, their essence or whatever, that necessitates a soul. We do pay Shannon. What are you talking about? Please pay Shannon. Well, a super chat just came in. Please pay Shannon more. She'll be on more shows and stay longer. Shannon is not here for the money in the first place. Shannon would do the shows if we didn't pay her. I know, because she used to do the shows when we didn't pay her. It's the profit sharing that we do is because I'm a socialist more than anything. Anyway, Trudy, sorry. That was me reacting to a chat. Is there a different definition of a soul or a different meaning to soul that you would like to engage in? Or do you think that it is true when I say a person's inflated sense of self because of the significance one needs to exist with a conscious mind is this, that we have an idea that we need to define that as something special other than, Trudy, this is the same reason why I don't know that the word consciousness is that meaningful. I don't know that I think consciousness at best is a bucket of describing multiple other things, that we are simultaneously processing the following senses and then also having experiences of perception and consideration of that input. Is there a different version of soul you'd like to engage with that we could?
feel like soul and spirit are totally separate things. Soul implies a supernatural, blah, blah, blah. But to me, your spirit is just about who you are, how you feel about other people, and how
there
you
are
react
secular
to
ways to use both words, right? The spirit of a piece. It's not actually describing anything ethereal, but the spirit of a human is usually describing their ghost. Ghost and spirit are synonymous, usually. But you could say the spirit of, he was mean-spirited. We're not actually describing a soul or a ghost. We're describing a way of acting.
Or that was a spirited conversation.
Yeah, this might be a spirited conversation.
I did the same thing too. I use spirit and soul in non-religious contexts or non-supernatural contexts.
Shoes have souls. There are secular ways to use the word soul, right? Yeah. I'll use in this sort of trying to describe this very emotional, this thing that feels physical in the chest, that hurt my soul. But I'm not actually describing a non-physical thing.
Yeah, you can say that company lost its soul once a new CEO took over. There's different ways we can use these words that kind of give us a gist about like an essence or like a overarching characteristic or a vibe you get from something. But supernatural is required for that.
And in the case of the company lost its soul, most of the times in that use, we're describing an empathetic connection to humanity, a sort of existential empathetic connection to humanity. Again, nothing magic.
Yeah. No, not magic.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Trudy. By the way, actually, real quick, I want to say, because the question you put in the notes was, how are we sure there is no spirit or soul? For the record, no one here is sure that there isn't. There's just no good reason to think there is.
Well, I've heard some people on the show say there is no spirit, no soul.
I don't think so. If so, they were briefly and colloquially trying to describe what I just did. There is no evidence for a soul. There's no reason to believe anything with our consciousness survives our death when we seem to be able to demonstrate that consciousness is a function of the brain.
It's the same way I would say there are no vampires. Like right. I'm not saying there are definitely no vampires anywhere ever. I'm saying we have no evidence to demonstrate that a vampire exists. Therefore, effectively, from my worldview, they don't exist.
Well, I feel like the evidence of my spirit is when I die, my spirit ceases to exist. It leaves my body.
If it ceases to exist, how can it leave something?
I think, Trudy, you're confused with your phrasing, because you said that earlier and then clarified and didn't mean that. Your spirit doesn't... If your spirit ceases to exist, it does one of the two. It either ceases to exist or it leaves your body.
Well, the energy is what I'm saying. The energy leaves my body because I've been told it's finite.
Right. The atoms eventually break down. The chemicals rather do. Actually, eventually you'll also suffer heat death of the universe. But yes, your body goes away. There's nothing any longer sending neurons. There's no reason to think that you're thinking, that you're having any experience beyond death once you've accomplished full death.
I agree that 100%.
What's that?
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Once I'm dead, I'm dead. Period.
Yep. All right, cool. All right, well, thank you, Trudy.
All right, thank you. Good day.
All right, I'm excited.
The heat death of the universe, the energy, the heat's still there. It's just spread out so much that it's just a homogeneous universe, basically, right?
And every atom is fundamentally far apart. But I mean, you also have proton decay and shit like that. So the question is, yes, the energy is still there.
Yeah.
But would you say the atoms are really still there? Would you say
the atoms aren't?
Because an atom isn't actually the smallest fundamental piece. And do they break? I'm not a physicist. I might be completely wrong.
Yeah. I'm sure we got one or two in the chat screaming right now.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. I'm going to suspend calls as is and take the 3 remaining calls because all 3 are argumentative in some way or another. Let's start with what I guess is a non-binary Jesus. which is awesome. Is it Jesus or Jesus from Georgia on the line?
Hi, it's Keyvis, Keyvis.
Okay, gotcha. We did not get the right spelling. Give it to me one more time. Key.
Zis.
Zis. What a cool name. All right, Keezus. Keezus, pronouns they, them from Georgia. You are on the line. Go ahead, and it's weird because it says you're arguing public debates between science communicators would be beneficial for society. I agree. So what's the point of contention?
Okay, yeah, I think right after I called in, maybe there was some clarification on both of y'all parts. But yeah, because I do think there is, segments of the population that aren't necessarily going to put in the time and effort to go do deep dive research, especially when you consider the fact that some of the people are putting out misinformation that can be very either subtle or, just massive in the amount of research that would need to be done.
Sure.
Sorry, I'm also looking at like a past feed, a time delayed feed. So I'm like, yeah, anyway.
Yeah, don't look at the feed.
Yeah,
don't look at the feed at all. Let's actually just ask some clarifying questions so we can fix a lot of this quickly. Do you believe that scientists must be science communicators?
No.
Good. Do you believe science communicators must be scientists?
No.
I agree.
But it would help, but yeah.
What's that?
Just
No,
like
I don't think one would help. I think I actually am a pretty good
yeah.
science communicator. I'm not a scientist, not in any meaningful way. I could argue that certain parts of my past could qualify me, but not in any meaningful way am I a scientist. I think that you have to be scientifically literate. I think you have to be able to understand. In fact, I would say that the best communicators of most things are people who are most literate at skepticism more than even necessarily the topic. So while I can articulate very well to you, and I can even debate on behalf of, for example, evolution against more than most of the population, even above average debaters against evolution, it doesn't mean that I could necessarily give a lecture on some advanced evolutionary concept. So it's not about whether or not debates should happen and that should be a form of communication. Then there's another topic. Should I, a person who is competent at debating evolutionary concepts, argue with a person who has an extremely stupid view and platform them as an equal, give them equal time,
exactly,
equal access to the audience, and say, you who believes that the universe was created by an ice cream fart, I'm going to give you that time to, should we platform this equivalently? And I would say, fuck no. This is why flat earthers became a problem. I am a part of the community of people who created the flat earther problem. Had we not addressed them, even in the lols way, even in the fun way of look how many views we're going to get dunking on this person because they're such an idiot. Had we not done that, flat earth, no one would, it's my genuine belief that no, flat earth would just be understood to be like Santa. There's probably a couple adults out there who believe it, and that's because of some tremendous mental failing.
Yeah, so that was one of the caveats I was actually going to advocate for, because there is certain context in which it would make more sense to actually have the conversation. So yeah, in for instance, like, being queer, human rights, aren't debatable. So yeah, it's definitely.
I'm willing to debate. I'm actually willing to debate human rights, just with the right opponent.
I'm not.
I am more than what. I'm
past that stage in my life.
I'm a debate. Right, I do it for a living. But we get people who call in all the time who are calling in to say that no, trans isn't real, or being gay is a choice, or all that sort of shit. I'm more than willing to have those conversations, especially in a forum like this where we don't pretend this is an equal forum. You cannot call us on this show and get equal treatment as the host get. We try to be reasonable, and we try to be good people, and we try to be, but I would not call this platform exists unequally on purpose, because it should exist unequally on purpose. And so those are, now, am I going to engage in a formal debate with some fucking ridiculous person where the premise of the debate is also something terrible, like trans people don't deserve to exist in society, fuck no. I wouldn't do that either. They don't deserve me, and society should ignore those people. Unfortunately, somebody will take that call, and the popularization of that debate is also a fucking issue. But as far as, especially when it comes to the experts, the non-communicators, the idea that that's who we should put up against a radical fucking idiot who is a conspiracy theorist. And I'm speaking of RFK Jr. right now, but you could give that to Elon or fucking Joe Rogan. They've all become just brain-rotted conspiracy theorists.
Right.
What's that?
I said, I'm not sure of that name, but yeah, it sounded like he had somebody specific in mind.
Yeah. Robert Kennedy Jr. is trying to run for the Democratic nomination against Biden, mostly on an anti-vax pro-conspiracy theory platform.
Yeah.
Yep. Anyway, Keezus, it sounds like we mostly don't disagree, so I want to get to some of the spicier calls where there is some disagreement, but I'm glad that I got to yell more. No to Mike's question in chat. Eric is not allowed to talk. Only when I raise my hand, like while my finger is up, can Eric talk, and when it comes down, he has to stop talking. It's not a fair platform. I told you all.
It is not. Oh, I'm sorry. I spoke.
In the macro economy. Yeah.
Anyway, now I want to do some Tim Robinson bits, but no one else gets that reference unless they watch I Think You Should Leave. Keys, this last word, and then we're going to hit up some of the argumentative calls because we got finite time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people say if you understand something good enough, you should be able to explain it to a dog. But everybody understands germs, and I don't know anybody's pet that cleans up after itself. So,
word.
Have a good one. Later.
Thanks, Keezus. I also think
know a pet that cleans up after itself.
I also think people shouldn't debate unless they can steelman their opponent's position. That's one of my things. Unless you can
knowing both sides.
Yeah.
Knowing both sides is super important.
Yep. I not only do I make sure to not overextend my when I'm debating people to pretend I know things I don't know. Quite the opposite. I have yet to meet somebody I've engaged in a debate with that I haven't thought like, I could do a better job representing your side than you do. Like, you kind of suck at this.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Mormons that come for me, especially, I'm like, you guys are fucking garbage at this.
Being an expert on a topic and be able to debate or discuss a topic, two almost completely different skill sets.
Utterly
it's
different.
It's like movie reviewers, like, reviewing a movie while creating a movie, like two different skill sets. A lot of people go, oh, well, if you're to write this movie, you're going to tear it down because you're a reviewer. Why don't you make a better movie? And it's like, no, it's a completely different set of skills. Same thing with, science debate or science discussions. Like, you talking about it requires so much more than actually researching the topic, and vice versa. You can't equivocate the two because they're completely different.
I will say people will email in or call in and tell us how to do our show better. And to those people, my response, usually internally, I don't always actually engage them directly, is, okay, well, since you know how to do it better, go do it better.
Yeah.
YouTube will reward you. And guys, this channel does pretty good. We're
put us out of business.
We're paying not an insignificant amount to like 10 people these days. At some point, Eric's been showing up so much, I'm going to have to add him. If he starts following the rules. This means you can talk.
You don't tell what to do until I'm on the payroll.
That's right. That's right. Oh man, that reminds me of a what's her name? Aubrey Plaza. There's a scene where
I just saw that. That's where I got that from.
If you
I saw it was on my YouTube short feed yesterday.
You want to tell me what to do?
It was her talking to that one business lady who wanted to like free intern her for like 6 months, and
it was, and then we'll see. Yeah, if you want to tell me what to do, put me on the fucking payroll.
Yeah, such a great comeback.
Christian in Georgia, you say that the New Testament is reliable. I'm excited to hear your defense of that.
Yes. And I'm speaking to whom?
This is Jimmy and Eric.
Jimmy and Eric. Nice to meet you.
Did you call in? You weren't watching the show or anything?
No. Well, I'm a first-time caller.
Okay.
They briefed your name, but I forgot.
All right, no worries.
So I was actually just talking with some people on Talk Even like an hour ago. I'm bored right now, so I do have a question though. My question is, I would assume you guys don't believe the New Testament is reliable. That's fair enough.
I'd go so far as to say that there is
guys-
adequate reason to believe that the New Testament is unreliable. That it's not just a matter of we don't have evidence to believe it. We have plenty of evidence to believe it's untrue.
Yeah, I think
Great,
there's
awesome.
bits of it
So-
that are true, bits of it
yeah.
that are false.
Yeah, surely there
Okay,
are,
great.
there are elements of
Yeah,
historical
so my
elements.
question
which
then
are
for you
present.
guys,
Go ahead.
okay, my question for you guys is how did you come to that? Like what standard did you kind of apply to the text to come to that conclusion?
Yeah, so
Skepticism.
Right. We can have that conversation. Generally, this show is you call in and tell us what you believe and why. That's the theme of it. But yes, applying skepticism to it. There are certain characters as you do your research from the New Testament, which there are no reason to believe exist, or again, reasons to believe don't exist. There are lots of very unscientific claims. There are things which are massive that while absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, it is extremely conspicuous. For example, the number of zombies that rised with Jesus, and boy, not a fucking person thought to write a letter about that shit, or report that it happened even amongst the people who were recording history. And so, yeah, it's the application of skepticism and the rejection of things which are scientifically unsound. So now that we've answered your question, why do you believe it is true?
I thought you'd never ask. So I have been looking into it for a few months. I'm a Christian, by the way. Shocker.
We picked that up.
Yeah. So some kind of factors or parameters that I kind of thought the gospel satisfied pretty well were things like recency. There's a pretty clear chain of custody. Multiple lines of evidence that are not related. There's some external evidence for some claims. There's harmonization between the gospels and undesigned coincidences. That's a fun one. There is the criterion of embarrassment. That's also a pretty fun one.
Yeah, no,
which I'm sure you guys have heard before.
Yes, every single thing that you've listed so far are things that usually people have to reconcile, not that they call as support. Like the whole harmony between the gospels. There isn't harmony between the gospels. Fundamentally, they're all telling a version of the same story. Hang on, Christian. They're telling a version of the same story, but the versions have several contradictory details to each other. I don't know how you would call them harmonious.
Can you give me your best example?
My best, I won't give mine. I'll just Google it. It's very quick and easy. But
okay.
Because I know if I just do things off the top of my head, I'll fuck it up. Gospel accounts. But there's literally, I mean, even just the usage of terms to describe people, I don't understand your
couple that come that come to my mind is basically the ordering in which the empty tomb was discovered.
There's that
the chain of events around that.
This is not the gospels.
Jesus commanding his disciples or his apostles to stay in a city, and in another one they don't stay, they go. But in the original one, they do stay. So there's you're going to have straight up contradictions in events that happened, like things like that.
Yeah, details around where and when Jesus was born, his family life. What is it? But so you're here to say that the Gospels are harmonious. Would that describe? Would that mean that the book is true? Even if they were, they're not. Eric's already just given you several great examples, but they're not. But if it were,
I was gonna. Okay. I was gonna talk about the tomb part, but if assuming the Gospels were completely harmonious, that wouldn't automatically mean it's completely true. It would lend credence to the fact that it's possible.
No, it doesn't. It literally, in what way does it lead any credence? Is the Lord of the Rings true?
Well, that's kind of fallacious.
No, it isn't. The three
Kind of
books
a
are
weird-
harmonious. And so you're saying if they're harmonious, it leads to the credence of possibility. It
Well, they're
literally
written by- I
doesn't.
mean,
It's unrelated
Well, they're
to the
written by one
possibility.
person, aren't they?
So you can say,
Right.
we don't know who wrote the Gospels. And they're not harmonious.
We have a pretty well.
And we have
okay,
no-
well, I
we have a
disagree
pretty
with
good
that
what?
too.
Because scholarship on your side says we don't.
Hey man, I don't have a side. I'm trying to.
Yes,
to
you
be
do. You
neutral
are a
here,
Christian,
but-
and we are not. That is your side. We don't have to play stupid word games. You are a
Yeah,
Christian.
but that doesn't. I mean,
You're defending
I'm
the Christian
saying.
worldview.
Oh,
Christian,
sure, yeah, obviously, but I'm not saying that I'm trying to be like, disingenuous.
Hey, Christian,
like,
maybe
I
maybe I
consider
can
both
cut to
sides.
the heart of this. Maybe I can cut to this heart,
Sure,
heart
go
of this
ahead.
pretty quick here. Let's say hypothetically,
Sure.
okay, we live in an alternate universe, all right, where we have all four gospels. Let's say that there was no plagiarism going on and they're all original works and we know the authors and they're all 100% consistent. Let's say we live in a universe where that's the case. Does that at all help us understand whether what's stated inside is true or not?
Good question. I would almost say yes.
How does that work? How do you go from I have four pieces of writing, they're all consistent, they're all written by different people, therefore the statements contained inside are true. How do you make that jump?
Oh, I'm sorry. I think I'm maybe misinterpreting. Like, there's more factors than that. Like, are they?
Well,
like I
hold
said,
on,
like,
just
are
on
they
its own.
harmonious, stuff like that.
But we already covered harmonious because they're all four are in harmony. They're all in agreement. They're all
I still didn't
consistent.
address that yet.
The criminal justice system is dependent on harmonious witness accounts and has been proven time and time again to be a terrible system. It's just better than everything else. Again, it's one of those things that it's awful, but it's better than everything else. Multiple people have been convicted on many people. Eyewitnesses saying they did something and DNA later showing they did not. So the concept of harmonious witness accounts is there's not even a place to begin and say that it's better or good. There are tons of people from was it the Philippines from like 600 years ago? At some point, people saw the sun or the moon fall out of the sky and hit the earth, and tons of people wrote about it. Did that happen?
Something that there's definitely. Well, I don't even know what you're talking about, unfortunately. So I can make a guess if you want.
It didn't happen, but the point is that harmonious witness accounts. So let's do this. You try to ask what's your best example of a contradiction. There are tons of them. Most of the contradictions you could call individually minor. How many there are conspicuous. The changes in the levels of contradictions as you go compared to more original text compared to new, also conspicuous. So let's skip all that because harmonious witness account doesn't work. Your best reason to
I didn't
believe.
get to respond to the tomb part.
Nobody cares about
So
the
that's
tomb
pretty
part.
simple, actually.
It literally doesn't matter. Even if you're completely right,
Well,
the
you said
greater
that's
point.
well, the other guy did say
Christian,
it's a contradiction.
No. Again, we just said the contradictions don't matter. True events could be reported by many people, right? I could go outside and yell to the people, my nipples are bleeding and my feet are blue. And 1,000 people could witness me say that and write down their accounts, and there be contradictions in those accounts, even though that event definitely happened. Both true and false events can have contradictory, they aren't, whether or not you suspect something is true or not, or maybe there is a core thing within there, like maybe the core thing of Jimmy actually did go outside and say something, we accept that. Whether you want to talk about that and these concepts of mythicism, don't establish whether or not the New Testament is reliable, whether God exists, whether Jesus exists, and his divinity is proven.
Well, Jesus definitely existed. That's not even argued.
No, Jesus did not
Are you
definitely exist. I am not a mythicist.
It's almost unanimously agreed by scholars that Jesus
Yes, scholars,
existed.
lots of scholars agree, and lots of people we agree existed from history. Probably not everybody will have. There is historical evidence. Again,
divine, though.
Christian, wait, I am not a mythicist. I am not saying Jesus did not exist. The burden of proof that he existed as a material fact of the universe has not actually been met. The standard of a historical fact is not close to the standard of a scientific fact. But that which we accept as a fact of the past is not as history, basically just to be able to live and go on. Most of our history is bullshit. It's written by the people who had access to writing stuff. We can't know almost anything is true about the past. So any specific individual, Jesus, the burden of proof has not been met that he definitely existed. But I do treat it as though he did, because it's been established. He's been established as a historical figure. I'd like to get to my question that I've had to keep reacting to your interruptions. My question that I keep trying to get to is,
I apologize.
What's your best proof that a God exists, period?
Oh, man. Best? I had to choose.
To
I
choose.
could use the...
Do you have any that aren't faith-based?
Sure. I could use the fine-tuning argument. How about that?
Go ahead.
Teleological. Yeah. You know the problem with induction? Bertrand Russell?
I thought you were going to do the fine-tuning one. I know all of these problems. I'm prepared for all of these problems.
Okay. Sometimes I have to talk about this. Sometimes people don't know. I just want to be, courteous.
No, that's fine. Which one do you want to go with? Do you want to go with fine-tuning?
Sure.
Go ahead. Present it.
I don't even know.
Present your fine-tuning, because everybody does it a little different.
Sure.
Present fine-tuning.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not gravity, sorry. The values for things like gravity, nuclear force is strong and weak. The rate at which the universe expanded, many corresponding factors involved with how the universe started, allowing galaxies to form, all that stuff. And the fact that none of these forces, none of their values have changed, as far as we know, since the universe started. That's very odd if the universe started from a kind of mindless, catalyst or force.
Well, odd is an establishment of improbable. We don't know whether it's improbable. The universe's probability of existing is 100%, some pre-existing place where you could evaluate before it happened. We don't have any establishment of. The universe exists, therefore its probability of existing is 100%. So I don't know what you mean by odd. To say it's very interesting, I definitely agree with, but we haven't gotten to a proof of God yet. So far you're presenting something that seems infinitely unlikely, but we can't actually establish any unlikeliness to it.
And also, Christian,
sure,
the whole fine-tuning argument works under the assumption that there can be only one possible combination of these factors to support life.
Mm-hmm.
We've never established that.
I agree that life is here. The combination of these factors does support us being here. That's why we're here to complain about it. But we don't know whether that this is the only possible combination that would support life, or if there are others that could have been possible.
Sure, yeah. I'm not saying this is like the only possible way. I'm saying that it's very, and the reason why I said it's odd to the other guy is like, it's not odd that the universe exists. I'm not even saying that. I'm saying it's odd that none of the values for any forces or anything like that have changed.
It's not odd unless you think that humankind was a goal of the universe, and there is no reason to believe that.
No, I say it would be odd if there wasn't some type of designer, because if the universe started as some type of reaction to some other pre-existing, force or something like that, then why wouldn't that same force cause changes to the values of the, forces of nature, right? That's where I think about it.
Why wouldn't it? For all we know, they do. For all we know, there's millions of trillions. I'm using human numbers, infinite numbers of universes where all of those things. But you're still describing this from a designer as though any of this was a conscious effort, which to me seems like you're fundamentally ignoring the clear lack of consciousness in so many things like evolution, because we understand the forces that drive evolution and definitely doesn't require anything conscious. There's no consciousness implied by gravity just existing. So it's this sort of thing of going like all these things that exist without a need for consciousness. I just really feel like to get started, consciousness is required because we have a we have a feeling of self-importance of humanity, and the fact that we have consciousness. We can't conceive of these things greater than our understanding that wouldn't require at least to be able to match that, even though we're surrounded by those things every day.
Mm-hmm. And for me, it's like something that I also struggle with in terms of like the whole teleological thing is like, if the universe is started from like some branch in the multiverse, like where'd the multiverse come from, bro? Like,
good,
is the
great
multiverse
question,
a necessary
Christian.
being,
Great
or is
question.
like,
Where does the multiverse come from?
is it
What would you
infinite
like?
regress, maybe?
What answer would you like to that? I don't know, or a lie, because those are our two options.
Well, you would have to affirm why it's a lie if there's a designer.
I would have to affirm that it's a lie to give you an answer when there's no way to know. We don't even know if there is a multiverse. So for me to answer where a multiverse comes from would only be a lie.
Well, I know I didn't say where it comes from. I said where would it? Assuming it's true.
Okay, one word change aside, that blows my entire point up, and now we're in a whole different. No, it's the same point. There's the correct answer to these questions is I don't know, and I'm certainly not going to pick a system which beyond I love this when it's what proof of your God do you have? Well, the fine-tuning argument, which doesn't actually prove a God. At best, if you accepted it, it would prove that the universe is unlikely. Unlikeliness doesn't mean a creator is more likely or less likely. It just would prove
not by itself.
unlikeliness.
Absolutely.
Correct, and that was your best proof. As I recall, that was the first one you listed. It's not. It doesn't.
I think I said in the beginning I didn't have a best proof. I just picked one. But I mean, that's
you
some more
said
if you want.
you said which one to choose from, as though there were tons of them. I'm just. Here's what I'm saying, Christian, and I hope you
think
call
they
back.
stack on each other.
I hope you call back, and I'm not coming off as condescending. I do get a bit incredulous with people where it's these ginormous jumps, just like the Kalam. Christians love the Kalam.
Okay.
Do you like the Kalam?
No, I don't. I don't care about it.
Word. Okay, good. You're one of my favorite Christians already because, God, Christians are fucking addicted to the Kalam for some reason. And the Kalam literally does not get close to establishing Christianity. It barely, if you accepted it, could you say it gets somewhere with, technically it takes some liberties beyond deism, but you could say deism, it gets you to. And the premises are all fucking flawed. And so I just sit here and sometimes people are saying things, it's like, where did you make the jump from an unlikely universe necessitates a God? Do you want to, the hard part is we only have.
Can I really quickly?
Yeah, yes. I'm going to tell you, we only have
sorry.
7 minutes left, and I do want to very briefly get to the last call that's waiting on hold. So why don't you give your last piece? I'll let Eric reply, and then we'll maybe put this on hold for another week.
Sure, yeah. I did have just one more question, and it was about the New Testament, which was what I was here for. And you can chime in too, other guys, but like between the two of you, what evidence were you maybe looking for when you were first evaluating it that the Gospels didn't satisfy? Like what evidence would point to it being true?
This is just funny because you don't know our backgrounds. You're talking to an ex-Mormon and an ex-Jehovah's Witness. We both believed in the Bible wholeheartedly.
Yes.
I don't think I said we didn't, but that's fine. Okay.
Yeah. So we start from skepticism.
Sorry.
Okay. So that means that we don't accept claims until there's a sufficient amount of evidence to justify acceptance of that claim. That protects us from adopting positions and ideas that are false, because that can negatively affect our lives.
Yeah. And so that's my question. The sufficient evidence is for you what? What's sufficient
That's
for
a
you?
good question. What is sufficient for us?
An
Certainly better
all-knowing
than
God
what's
will
currently
certainly
being
know.
presented.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like that's like me saying, hey, what evidence can I show you that the fairy in my backyard is real? Like it could be better than what we currently have.
I mean,
what exactly is
let's narrow it down,
required,
not
I
just
don't
for
know.
God.
It depends on the claim. I'm sorry, what?
Well, I wasn't talking about God in general. I'm saying that the New Testament was reliable. Like what evidence would you need to say, yeah, the New Testament is probably reliable? Like what evidence were you looking for that you didn't find?
The New Testament in its current form is impossible to make reliable.
Yeah.
It is too contradictory. Period.
You mentioned a bunch of things. One that I latched onto that we didn't go into was the chain of custody, right? So I could grant you that from the time that Mark, the first gospel, was penned to now, that it is 100% perfectly preserved. That doesn't account for the 30, 40 years oral tradition that preceded it. You mentioned the criterion of embarrassment, which I also reject because we don't know what embarrassed them back there. A lot of times, there's a I think it was in the old
disciples
TV
look
show
like
called
morons until.
Sure.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, here's the thing, though. Here's the thing, though. There's an old crappy TV show called Heroes, and even as bad as that show was, I got a great quote out of it. The best lie is the one that makes you look bad. So if you want to sell somebody something, I'm not saying they're necessarily lying, okay? But if you want to sell somebody something, you want to mix in a little embarrassment. You want to mix in a little bit of, I'm not exactly perfect.
Yeah, I've heard that
This is
before.
kind of making me, so the whole criteria of embarrassment is just kind of
But
out
that's
the window, mainly because we don't know what would have embarrassed them. And if they're trying to convince us of something, it would be reasonable to assume that they'll mix in some embarrassment to make it more convincing. So that's two of your things that you mentioned that are out.
From that. Well, that's to assume they had something to gain from trying to push Christianity on the first century Palestinian Jews.
I think being a religious leader of a burgeoning religion with lots of followers would give you plenty to gain.
Yeah. By the way,
that's
just
they all died.
Just like with modern religions,
they
and
didn't
cults,
get power. They didn't get women. They had nothing to gain from that.
Christian, do you believe in Mormonism?
No.
How is it so successful if the criterion of embarrassment is remotely plausible? It is and Joseph Smith is probably knew it was all bullshit. He probably wasn't just delusional and believed it. He probably knew it was all bullshit. Too much of it seems hostile. And yet you have all these people who are tremendous contributors. Oliver Cowdery, being a secondhand man. Oliver Cowdery might have believed. I sort of still am on the side if he didn't. But once you get past that core group,
I can answer that.
Clearly, give me a second. Clearly, you actually had the establishment of all of this doctrine and stuff from this embarrassingly untrue religion being established by people who did believed and were deceived by the people who actually knew it was all just a prank, bro.
But Christian, just
First
to go back.
Sorry that you're a Mormon.
Not as sorry as I am.
Yeah.
Hey, Christian,
well,
I just want to.
I'll take you there.
I'm sorry you're a Christian.
I just want to loop back around. I want to loop back around, and I want to answer your question more succinctly. So, if you want me to believe the New Testament, one is you have to overcome all of the objections that we're bringing up right now, and two, you have to. I don't know what it would look like, but provide us evidence that these events actually happen the way they're described. Now, what that appears to be, I don't know.
Really quick, that's very important. Does the fact that you don't know, doesn't that seem like concerning?
No.
Like, doesn't that?
Don't know the fact that I don't know what.
You just said you don't know. No, you just said you don't know what evidence will satisfy you. So how am I supposed to? How am I supposed to help you?
Wait.
If you don't even know. What you're looking for, how can I help you?
What you just said is ridiculous. Nobody knows which evidence of evolution will be compelling until it is discovered and then presented. So if you want to ask the question of what kinds of evidence is compelling to you, I would say things with consistency, with repeatability, with testability, something that we can put through the scientific method. But if you want to ask what a specific type of example of evidence is, I don't believe your religion is true. So do you just want me to come up with a magic answer? Like, if God presented himself, explained how the whole thing happened, we could take him into a lab, we could start running our tests. Sure, at a certain point, and then we have to answer how a contradictory book can be true even in two places where they are saying opposite things, where one can't be true and then the other. Your question
first of all,
what evidence is ridiculous. But your God,
the
all-knowing, omniscient...
You wouldn't use the scientific method for history. You use the evidence.
I already said for history, what you accept as our past, we do not use the same level. And the main reason is there aren't any stakes to it until a religious person comes in and adds stakes. So whether or not I believe Alexander the Great actually did or didn't exist, and by the way, Alexander the Great, the person, almost certainly existed, but a ton of the things ascribed to him definitely didn't. So in a very real way, Alexander the Great actually didn't exist because the person you think who is Alexander the Great never existed. This is true of people on Twitter. I tell people on Twitter all the time, you're not real, so why would I engage with you? Because if an anime profile photo with the name Wonkers2681237 is telling me that I should kill myself, who is actually telling me that? Not a real person. This person face-to-face, having to represent in them actual self, aren't real. So the concept of who existed is already a fluid fucking concept because almost no one in history actually existed, but a person in their place who actually did live and breathe, many of those people did. George Washington did exist. The George Washington who cut down the cherry tree and then I cannot tell a lie, didn't. The characters we believe exist didn't exist.
Okay, if I could respond to the other gentleman,
I would go with that.
I say that it was kind of, I would say it was kind of concerning to like I asked like for you guys personally, like what evidence would you deem sufficient to find the New Testament reliable? And the other gentleman said he doesn't know what it would be, and it's like fair enough. I guess.
And I already clarified he's talking about specific evidence, categorically evidence which sufficiently addresses. Yeah, but I've done this a lot longer, and I anticipated the dishonesty and the pedantry of your question. Eric engaged you in good faith. I'm a cynical bastard. I'm not trying to be dishonest. If I'm coming across dishonest, Eric, true or false? You would accept evidence which sufficiently meets the standards met by skepticism.
Yes.
Boom. There you go, Christian. You got an answer. Because that wasn't the question you asked.
And can you repeat, like, would the standards of skepticism would include?
No, because we have
like repeatability or whatever for some reason.
Yeah, humility is right at the top. It's not at all. Skepticism, if you aren't familiar, you should begin. Oh man, I don't even know which resource to begin. We're already over time and I still have the other call too, but I'm not going to right now. We already take so much time on this channel teaching people skepticism that we're not going to start the class right now. But again, there are other methods. The scientific method, I would accept scientific evidence. What are you laughing about now, Christian?
You would. I said you guys are amazing. I
agree.
This is what I wanted.
I wish you had called with more time.
Why would you use? I have a question. Why would you use the scientific method for history? Like I'm still stumped.
I literally didn't say that. But Christian, go back and watch the call because now you are fundamentally misrepresenting what I just said. I literally said, historically, I do not accept that a person existed based on the scientific method. Otherwise, I would not accept that Alexander the Great exists. The standard for history is different than science. But if you raise the stakes and say your acceptance of a historical figure now determines whether or not you will be rewarded or tortured for eternity. Now we have to raise the standard of historical establishment because of the stakes that you established.
I don't know why, but that seems doesn't that seem biased though? Like,
what are you talking
because
about?
It's something that you don't.
If
you make it,
you don't know why. If a person says, if I tell you Spider-Man existed, which is something that outside of science couldn't happen. Scientifically, we understand that Spider-Man can't literally exist. So if I tell you he did exist and your acceptance of Spider-Man is suddenly grounds for your entire life to either have to change or be maintained a certain way, for you to say, okay, your new historical claims come with scientific claims that are out of this world, and now, before I change my life, you have to meet that higher standard that matches how extraordinary your claim is. You think that is bias?
Okay, I see what you mean. Well, my whole premise is you can use natural means and you can use like evidentiary means to reasonably infer that the New Testament is reliable, and you can take it on its word that some God probably exists.
The New Testament isn't reliable among Christians.
You can't scientifically. Well, I have yet to hear any substantive, I was about to
go to church. Go to church and do it. You can't find two Christians to agree on it anyway because scholars can't have a universal agreement. There is no scholarship which says that this is a consistent. Yes, there are things in the New Testament that represent real history. There are places, there might even be words that were said by actual people. It might be entirely, all of the dialogue might be made up all the way also. But whether or not I accept it as a historical idea that Jesus existed, I go with sure, in as much as I accept any other history. I don't know how, I'm just going to repeat and loop. I don't think you listen, Christian, to tell you the truth. So I'm going to ask you to go back.
I'm sorry,
I'm going to ask you to go back and listen to the call again because I don't want to loop another time. And then do look up skepticism. Look up what skepticism entails. Watch videos on this channel on how to be a skeptic. The funny thing about skepticism is if your belief is true, skepticism is not a threat to it. Everybody should engage in skepticism no matter their belief.
Skepticism. Yeah, skepticism is great. It shouldn't be something to avoid. The problem is there needs to be something else.
Right, so stop avoiding it when you're thinking about virgin-born zombies. Last words, Christian, go ahead.
You're just taking the piss now, but...
A little bit, but this call has been absurd. You don't listen. Christian, okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to give you 30 seconds. They're your 30 seconds, and then the call's over. Go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate that. The I don't even know where to start. Yeah, I was going to address some things, but I'll leave that maybe to another week.
Sure.
I like the skepticism. I can understand where you guys come from, but I think that there's kind of a apparent lack of like, what's the better explanation? Like, you know, it's saying I don't know or nuh-uh, you know, it's like, and you guys didn't just say that, but it's like saying I don't know, I don't think it happened.
7 seconds.
That's probably not.
I'm giving you a 7 extra. You're 30
explanation. Thank you. Yeah, it doesn't add anything to the table. That's all.
Good. Great. All right.
And I don't know what
See
you're
you,
saying
Christian.
is for evidence.
See ya.
Bye.
Well, we told you twice, but go ahead. Bye. And now that the call is over, if I don't know it, when I don't know is the best answer, that's the answer. Because to add when I don't know is the best answer is to lie. And lies are worse even when they add. Jesus. Okay, we're going to do this one very quickly because sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I know Christian's not here anymore, but my final word to that is, if you have these convoluted claims with a lot of conflicting evidence, which I know Christian will disagree with me whether evidence conflicts or not, but if you have these convoluted claims about historical events, and we don't have enough evidence to justify belief in those things, and we don't know what evidence will justify our belief in those things, that's not on us. That is on the person making the claim. Or if that God is real, it is on that God for not setting it up so that we have enough to work off of. That is not our problem. That is the problem on the claimant side.
Also, every time I've engaged with a person who's done what kind of evidence would satisfy you, and you say, and you try to give them an answer, they usually then try to, my sister-in-law did this once with a person, who, I won't call out the individual person. We're going to have to go very quick because we're I think now streaming simultaneously as Aron's Book of Mormon thing, and I'm supposed to be there. But at one point, she was asked by somebody in her life, what would convince you that Mormonism was true? And she at that time gave what used to be an answer. Early atheists give this answer a lot. If an angel came to me and showed me, presented it to me, sure, I would believe that's true. And maybe even the person asked her that. I don't remember. But if an angel showed you, and so then that person came to her house and was like, well, by this definition within the church and this definition and this definition, I am technically an angel. And I am here to tell you it's true. And you said that if an angel told you it was true, that you would believe it. And as a person with a soul, my soul is an angel and blah, blah, blah. Literally like you're going to play a fucking word game. And that's the reason why you don't engage with that. It's not a matter of what evidence will compel you. Give me the evidence you find compelling, and I will tell you whether or not it's justified to be compelling as a skeptic or not. I'm not going to do your homework for you.
If a God exists and that's his strategy, I am not impressed.
How many people before evolution was proven said, I will believe when you show me finches with different beaks according to their environment? Not one fucking person. Jesus. Okay, very quickly. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Let's go on. Let's move on. No, that's fine. Let's move on.
Keith in New Jersey, you're on the line with, and we got to do this so fast with Jimmy and Eric, and you want to say that there is a third option between the position of atheist and theist. Go ahead. Keith, can you hear us? Oh, Keith. Hey, Keith, if you can hear us, but we can't hear you, hang up right now and call back right away. We got to go fast. On the off chance that, okay, Keith did just hang up, so he heard us. Let's see if they call right back.
I'm confused. Who was the other guy? We both referred to as other guy. One of us has to be guy.
I'm other guy. Yeah, I think other guy was whoever wasn't the last one speaking.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. I liked when he was like, I'm going to go back to Eric's point that you just clarified, but I'd like to go back to it pre-clarification. Like, yeah, of course you want to. That's the easy way. Okay, I'm just going to make it simple since it looks like Keith is not calling back in. No, there is not an option besides atheist or theist. If you want to come up with some convoluted definition, but it won't stand up anywhere. I used to believe that it didn't stand up in the world of philosophy and philosophical definitions of atheism and theism were exempt from this. It turns out that isn't true, and I just fell for what other people's are. Theism is the claim. Atheism is the rejection of the claim. Rejection of the claim does not have to come in the form of that claim is not true. It can come in the form of I do not believe that claim. I am not convinced by that claim. You are a theist if you are convinced a God exists. If you are not convinced that a God exists, you are an atheist. There are people who think that yes is theism, no is atheism, and maybe or could be is agnosticism. Agnosticism is a proposition on the knowledge of something. The belief or the whether you are convinced on something is the principle at hand when we're talking about atheism versus theism. Your two options are I am convinced or I am not, and that's it.
I had the same things get over along those lines when I first deconverted, because I didn't want to call myself an atheist, so I called myself an agnostic. But really, you're talking about a completely different category of things there. And the atheism versus theism thing, if you want to talk strictly philosophically, it's going to be theism, atheism, and non-theism. But that's in a philosophical context.
I can actually send you debates where that's been challenged, and I would say adequately so. That again, it's even in philosophy, atheism is the rejection of the claim of theism.
Yeah, it depends on what school of philosophy you're following. But I mean, there could be a context and a conversation where you adopt those terms. Colloquially, 99% of the time, where most of us normal people who are not philosophy majors talk about it, theism versus atheism. You're talking about belief in a god or not a belief in a god. It's the same way as referring to something as a basketball or not a basketball. There are no other third options. You are either it or not. So you either believe in a god or you do not. You're either a basketball or you are not a basketball. There's no like fuzzy middle ground that you can, jam another term in there and say, oh, this is our third option. It's just, logic doesn't work that way. It's an
Eric
axiom of
says
logic.
that,
You don't have middle ground.
And yet hot dogs are in fact tacos. All right. Thank you everybody for joining tonight. Eric, thank you for coming in last minute. I literally just saw Eric in chat when Shannon had to go and said, hey, do you want to pop in? And he said, sure. And then I accidentally made him wait in the green room by not giving him a fresh link and giving him Shannon's old link, which for some reason hadn't refreshed. I am headed over to Aron Ra's channel where we are reading the Book of Mormon. I will be there in just moments. Come hang out with us over there. Otherwise, we will see you this week. Make sure you go check out the link in the description to the wow, I think I almost threw up just now. To the fundraiser. Ugh, terrible taste in my mouth. To the fundraiser that is this coming Saturday for RFR. You can donate now. That would be fucking incredible. But we have amazing shows lined up, including Aron Ra and Professor Dave tomorrow. Gail Jordan, I think it is joining Dave Warnock on Tuesday. Matt, I believe, is being joined by Dr. Daryl Ray. Am I getting all of this fucking wrong? Or I don't remember. The shows for this week are fucking amazing. And then we have that awesome event on Saturday that ends with a Q&A ran by donations of the Unholy Trinity, where for the first time since the last time, that's a meaningless sentence, but for the first time since the last time, Seth, Andrew, and Aron will sit down together and take questions. That's going to be fucking awesome. That's how the show will end, but there'll be awesome segments leading up. Help us with that. We really do need to help RFR raise money. The work they do is incredible, and $25,000 would go a long way, and that is what our goal is. So go hit that reminder. Please share it out. We'll see you more this week. Thank you for watching. This has been The Sunday Show. I'm Jimmy Snow. That's Eric. Eric, say goodbye.
Bye.
Just kidding. That's an earlier joke. Some people have missed it. All right, bye, everyone. Fuck. I think my outro's all fucked up. This is probably not the right list of people.
Everything's all fucked up here, man.
Especially the co-host.
Kind of operation. Oh, finally, you're covered.
Co-host.
I'm on the correct side now. This is awesome. No, get back over there. Back over there.
This isn't even the right list of people, I think, anymore. I mean, there are some right people in there, but we'll fix it later. Arden made a way better outro that I have to switch to. Bye.
Bye.